Have you ever stood on an open plain, feeling the air grow heavy and still just before a storm? Imagine that feeling, but amplified 1,000 times. Picture a sky, vast and blue, slowly gathering a cloak of dark, bruised clouds. They roll in not with a sudden crash, but with a low, deep rumble that seems to vibrate right through the ground and into your bones. This isn't just the sound of weather changing. It's an ancient sound, a whisper of thunder that has echoed across this land for millennia. This is the sound that begins the story. A story whispered around campfires, painted on hides, and carved into rock. It's the story of the Thunderbird across the sprawling landscapes of North America, from the dense, misty forests of the Pacific Northwest to the sun-baked mesas of the Southwest, and across the great, sweeping plains. The legend takes flight. For countless generations, Indigenous peoples have shared tales of an immense, magnificent bird, a creature of supernatural power and awe-inspiring presence. They say it was so colossal that its shadow could swallow mountains whole. Its eyes glowed with the brilliance of lightning, and the beat of its powerful wings was the very source of thunder itself. When a storm gathered, it wasn't just a meteorological event. It was the Thunderbird, soaring on the winds, bringing the life-giving rain that nourished the earth. It was a guardian, a powerful spirit of the upper world, a force of nature. To some, it was a creator being, a divine entity that helped shape the world as we know it. To others, it was a fierce protector, battling monstrous creatures from the underworld to keep humanity safe. The stories vary from tribe to tribe, each one a unique and vibrant thread in a grand, continental tapestry of belief. The Kwakwakak people tell of its immense power and its role in their sacred ceremonies. The Lakota see it as a noble spirit, a messenger from the great mystery. The Ojibwe speak of its eternal conflict with the great horned serpent of the waters below. But through all these diverse traditions, a common image emerges, a being of immense scale and power, intrinsically linked to the sky, the storms, and the fundamental forces of life and nature. These weren't just campfire stories told to frighten children. They were profound explanations for the world's mysteries, moral lessons, and a way of understanding humanity's place within a living, breathing cosmos. The Thunderbird wasn't just in the sky. It was woven into the very fabric of their culture and spirituality. Think about it. In a time before modern science, how else could one explain the terrifying, beautiful power of a thunderstorm? The sudden flash of lightning that splits the sky, the deafening crash of thunder that follows, the sheets of rain that can bring either life or destruction. Attributing this celestial drama to a magnificent, sky-dwelling bird makes perfect sense. It gives a face to the formless, a purpose to the chaotic. It transforms a frightening event into a meaningful Wanadivayan dance between sky and earth. The depictions of the Thunderbird are as powerful as the stories themselves. We see its image in intricate totem poles, reaching high into the clouds, as if to join its brethren. We see it in detailed beadwork, on ceremonial masks, and in ancient petroglyphs rock, carvings that have weathered the passage of centuries. These images often show a massive eagle-like bird, sometimes with a distinctive feathered crest on its head, or wheat horns, symbolizing its immense power. Often, lightning bolts are depicted shooting from its eyes, or beak. These aren't just artistic renderings. They are sacred icons, portals to the spiritual world, reminders of the great powers that govern existence. But as time moved forward, as the world changed, the story began to shift. To the settlers and pioneers who moved across the continent, these tales were often dismissed as folklore, as primitive myths. The Thunderbird became a legend, a fascinating but ultimately fictional creature from a bygone era. It was relegated to the pages of mythology books, a whisper from a past that seemed increasingly distant. The roar of the Thunderbird was quieted, replaced by the roar of progress, of steam engines and cities. Yet, the question lingered, refusing to disappear entirely. What if there was more to the story? What if the legends weren't just legends? Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, and even into our modern day, strange and unsettling reports have emerged. Accounts from cowboys, ranchers, explorers, and everyday people who claim to have seen something impossible in the sky. They speak of birds of an unnatural size, creatures with wingspans so vast they defy belief, as wide as a small airplane. In 1890, Two cowboys in Arizona claimed to have not only seen but shot down a gigantic, bird-like creature. They described it as having smooth, featherless skin and a wingspan of over 100 feet. The story, published in the Tombstone epitaph, became a classic piece of Old West folklore. Was it a hoax, a misidentification, or a genuine encounter with something that shouldn't exist? Decades later, in the 1970s, a rash of sightings occurred in Texas, Illinois, and Alaska. Witnesses, including law enforcement officers, described being buzzed or even lifted by enormous, dark, bird-like shapes in the sky. They were credible people, shaken by what they had experienced, struggling to reconcile the impossible thing they saw with the world they thought they knew. These weren't ancient myths. These were modern encounters, told by people living in our scientific, rational age. These accounts force us to look back at the original stories with new eyes. Could these widespread, enduring legends across an entire continent be rooted in some kind of shared reality? Could our ancestors have been describing a real creature, something that soared through the skies of a prehistoric North America? Perhaps a surviving pterosaur, a type of flying reptile thought to have gone extinct with the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. Or maybe a species of pterotorn, a giant condor-like bird with a wingspan of up to 25 feet, known to have lived here until the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 years ago. Is it possible that pockets of these magnificent animals survived long enough to coexist with the first humans in America, searing their image into our collective memory? An image so powerful it was passed down through generations, evolving into the divine Thunderbird of legend. The memory of a real, flesh and blood giant of the sky could easily become the basis for a god. And so, we stand at a crossroads of myth and reality, of ancient belief and modern mystery. We are left with a profound and tantalizing question. When we hear that low, distant rumble and look to the gathering clouds, what are we truly witnessing? Is the Thunderbird merely a powerful symbol, a spirit of the storm, a god born from the human need to explain the unexplainable? Is it a cultural memory, a story that has echoed through the ages? Or, just maybe, is it something more? Something real. A living, breathing creature from a lost world. A whisper of thunder that reminds us that our world is far stranger and more wonderful than we can possibly imagine. Thank you so much for joining me on this first step of our journey. If you're as fascinated by this mystery as I am, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because in our next chapter, we're going to dive deep into the eyewitness accounts and the physical evidence. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. Welcome back, everyone. Let's journey further into the heart of a story that has echoed through the ages. A legend that took flight long before the first words were ever etched into stone or pressed onto paper. This is the story of the Thunderbird, a being of immense power and profound significance whose tales were not read from books, but carried on the wind, passed from one generation to the next through the sacred art of oral tradition. Imagine a time before written history, when the collective memory of a people was held in the hearts and minds of its elders, storytellers, and shamans for countless generations. Tribes like the Ojibwe, the Sioux, the Menominee, and many others across the vast landscapes of North America kept these legends alive. They were woven into the fabric of daily life, shared around crackling fires under a canopy of stars. Their narratives as vital as the air they breathed. The Thunderbird wasn't a single, monolithic myth. To think of it that way would be to miss the beautiful complexity of these ancient cultures. Instead, it was a tapestry of many legends, each thread unique to the tribe that wove it. For some, the Thunderbird was known by a specific name, a sacred word that held its own power. Its colors varied from one story to the next, sometimes depicted as black as a storm cloud, other times with feathers that flashed with the brilliance of lightning itself, or even shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow. The meaning, too, was multifaceted. One tribe might see the Thunderbird primarily as the bringer of life-giving rain, its powerful wings summoning the storms that would quench the thirsty earth and allow the crops to grow. For another, it was a guardian spirit, a protector of the people against malevolent underwater spirits or other dangers that lurked in the shadows. And for others still, it was a powerful ancestor, a creator being who played a pivotal role in shaping the world as they knew it. These stories, despite their descriptions of a creature that could clap its wings and create thunder, were not designed simply to frighten people into obedience. That's a common misconception. Instead, They were profound teachings, intricate lessons about the delicate balance of the natural world. They were a form of meteorology, a way to understand and respect the awesome power of the weather. The flash of lightning was the thunderbird's blinking eye, the rumble of thunder, the beat of its colossal wings. This wasn't just folklore. It was a way of seeing the world, of being in relationship with the forces of nature rather than just being subject to them. These legends taught respect. They reminded people that they were part of a much larger, interconnected system. The Thunderbird's power was a symbol of nature's own meat of force to be honored, not conquered. It represented the eternal cycle of destruction and creation. The storm that could flood a river, but also the rain that would bring new life. It was a lesson in humility, a reminder that humanity's place in the cosmos was one of stewardship and respect, not domination. Through these stories, children learned about the changing seasons, about when to plant and when to harvest, and about the importance of living in harmony with all living things. The Thunderbird was a teacher, its lessons as enduring as the mountains and as vital as the rain. Let's take a closer look at how some specific tribes viewed this magnificent creature. For many Algonquian-speaking peoples, like the Ojibwe, the Thunderbird was a central figure in their cosmology. They saw the world as being divided into an upper realm and a lower realm. The Thunderbirds were the powerful masters of the upper world, benevolent spirits who waged an endless war against the malevolent spirits of the lower world, often depicted as great horned serpents or underwater panthers. This celestial conflict was a metaphor for the balance of good and evil, of creation and destruction, a constant struggle that maintained order in the universe. The storms were the visible evidence of this cosmic battle. Moving to the Great Plains, the Lakota Sioux have their own rich traditions surrounding a similar being, Wakia. The name itself translates to sacred wing or thunder. Being Wakia is a complex and mysterious entity, often described as a great bird, but also said to be formless, more of a force than a physical creature. Unlike this straightforwardly benevolent thunderbird of some other traditions, Wakia operates in a way that can seem contradictory or contrary to human understanding. It is said to do everything backward, to speak in opposites. This isn't because it is evil, but because its wisdom is beyond the linear logic of humans. To receive a vision from Wakia was a great and powerful, but also dangerous, honor. It granted immense spiritual power, often the power to heal, but it came with the responsibility of living a life that reflected this contrary, sacred nature. The Menominee. People of the Great Lakes region tell stories of how the Thunderbirds are the messengers of the Great Spirit, tasked with controlling the rain and fires. They are seen as the elder brothers of humanity, watching over them from above. In their stories, the Thunderbirds' nests were located on a great, floating mountain in the western sky. From this high perch, they could survey the world and ensure its well-being. When they saw evil spirits threatening the people, they would descend from the sky, their eyes flashing with lightning, to drive the malevolent forces away. What's truly fascinating is how these different narratives, while unique, share a common core. They all speak of a powerful avian being associated with the sky, weather, thunder, and lightning. This widespread belief across geographically and culturally distinct tribes points to a deeply ancient origin, a proto-myth that likely traveled with the first peoples as they spread across the continent thousands upon thousands of years ago. It's a concept so fundamental, so tied to the universal human experience of witnessing a thunderstorm, that it found a home in countless cultures, each one adapting it to fit their own unique worldview and environment. These oral traditions were incredibly resilient. The accuracy with which stories were passed down is astounding. Storytellers were highly respected individuals who underwent years of training. They didn't just memorize words, they internalized the spirit of the story, the intonations, the gestures, the pauses. It was a performance, a ceremony. To change a story was considered a serious offense, as it would disrupt the balance the story was meant to teach. This ensured that the core lessons about nature, balance, and respect were preserved with remarkable fidelity for centuries, even millennia. So, as we stand here today, in a world dominated by written words and digital information, it's humbling to reflect on the power of these ancient oral traditions. The legends of the Thunderbird are more than just myths. They are a library of ecological wisdom, a guide to ethical living, and a testament to the enduring human need to understand our place within the grand, and often terrifying, beauty of the natural world. They remind us that for most of human history, the most important stories were not written down, but were carried in the memories of our ancestors and spoken into the world with reverence and care. Thank you so much for joining me on this part of our journey. It's a privilege to share these stories with you. If you're finding this exploration as fascinating as I am, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more. It really helps us continue to bring these incredible legends to light. We'll see you in the next chapter. Hello and welcome back to our journey through the myths and legends that shape our world. In our last chapter, we explored the vast and varied tales of giant birds across cultures. Today, we delve deeper into one of the most powerful and revered of these figures, the Thunderbird, as seen through the eyes of the Ojibwe people. This isn't just a story of a mythical creature. It's a profound narrative about balance, protection, and the spiritual forces that govern the cosmos. So, settle in as we ascend into the storm-filled skies to meet the Ojibwe's great protector. For the Ojibwe, an Anishinaabe people whose ancestral lands stretch across the Great Lakes region of North America, the Thunderbird, or Animiki, is a central figure in their spiritual cosmology. It's a being of immense power, a guardian spirit of the highest order. Animiki isn't just a bird, it's a manifestation of the sky itself, a living, breathing force that presides over the upper world. Imagine, if you will, a realm far above the tallest pines, beyond the reach of human sight, a home built from clouds and sky. This is where the Thunderbird dwells. It is said that there isn't just one, but a family of these magnificent beings living in a great lodge on the highest mountain at the western edge of the world, a place where the sun sets and the spirits cross over. From this lofty perch, they keep a ceaseless vigil over the earth and all its inhabitants. The appearance of the Thunderbird is as awe-inspiring as its role. Descriptions vary, but it's often depicted as a colossal bird, larger than any known creature. Its feathers shimmer with the colors of the storm-deep blues, thunderhead grays, and flashes of brilliant white. Its head is sometimes said to be horned, a symbol of its immense spiritual power, and its eyes glow with an intense, watchful light. But the most defining features are its wings, so vast that their movement creates the very winds that sweep across the lands. But why does the world need such a powerful protector? Because deep beneath the surface of the waters, in the dark and mysterious underworld, lurk powerful and dangerous beings. The Ojibwe stories speak of the Misha Peshu, or underwater panther, horned serpents that represent the chaotic and often destructive forces of the deep. These creatures are not inherently evil in a simplistic sense, but their nature is to pull things down, to create chaos, and to challenge the order of the world. They are the masters of the underworld, just as the Thunderbirds are the masters of the sky. A delicate balance exists between these two realms. The sky world, with its life-giving rain and sun, represents order, creation, and spiritual clarity. The underworld, with its dark waters and hidden depths, represents chaos, destruction, and the unknown. The world of humanity exists in the middle, caught between these two immense forces, and it is the Thunderbird's sacred duty to maintain this balance, to ensure that the forces from below do not overwhelm the world of the living. And so, great battles are fought in the skies, when the underwater serpents rise from the lakes and rivers, attempting to drag the world into their chaotic domain. The Thunderbirds descend from their cloudy peaks to meet them. This is the origin of the thunderstorm. The dramatic, breathtaking spectacle of a storm is, in fact, a divine conflict. Picture it. Dark clouds boil across the horizon, a visible sign that the Thunderbirds are on the wing. The air grows heavy, charged with an unseen energy. Then, a brilliant, blinding flash streaks across the sky. That, the elders teach, is the Thunderbird blinking its eyes. The light is so powerful, it momentarily illuminates the entire world, a divine weapon to seek out the serpents hiding in the churning waters below. And the sound that follows that deep, rolling, earth-shaking boom is not just thunder. It is the sound of the Thunderbird's colossal wings beating against the air. Each powerful downstroke creates a sonic boom that echoes across the landscape, a war cry that announces its presence and strikes fear into the hearts of the underwater beings. The rain that falls is not merely water. It is the life-giving force of the sky, washing the world clean and pushing the serpents back down into their watery realm. Sometimes, the evidence of these battles can be found. Small, curiously shaped stones, known as fulgurites, are occasionally discovered where lightning has struck the earth. These are said to be the physical remnants of the Thunderbird's arrows, or the scales of the defeated serpents, tangible proof of the cosmic struggle that just took place above our heads. These stories were not just entertainment, told around a crackling fire. They were fundamental lessons about the nature of the world, passed down through generations. They carried deep, spiritual, and philosophical meaning. The first and most obvious lesson is that of protection. The Thunderbird is the ultimate guardian, a symbol that the Anishinaabe people are never truly alone or defenseless. Even when faced with unseen dangers or overwhelming challenge, symbolized by the underwater powerful and benevolent force is watching over them. This belief provided immense comfort and strength, fostering a sense of security in a world that could often be harsh and unpredictable. It taught that for every destructive force, there is a protective one, maintaining a universal equilibrium. Secondly, the story of the Thunderbird teaches humility. By acknowledging powers as vast as the Thunderbirds and the underwater serpents, humanity is reminded of its place in the grand cosmic order. We are not the masters of the universe. We are inhabitants of the middle world, dependent on the balance maintained by forces far greater than ourselves. A thunderstorm wasn't just bad weather. It was a sacred event, a reminder to be respectful and mindful. During a storm, people would often offer tobacco, a sacred plant, as a sign of respect and a prayer for safety, acknowledging the great spiritual battle being waged on their behalf. Finally, this narrative teaches about the unseen world. It reinforces the belief that what we perceive with our five senses is only a fraction of reality. The physical world is interwoven with a spiritual one, and events in one realm have direct consequences in the other. The storm is the physical manifestation of a spiritual conflict. This worldview fosters a deep connection to nature, where every element, the wind, the rain, the flash of lightning is imbued with meaning and spirit. It encourages a way of seeing the world, not as a collection of inert objects, but as a living, breathing, and sacred entity. The Thunderbird is also a source of great personal power and vision. It is a key figure in the Maid women, the Grand Medicine Society of the Ojibwe, a spiritual path of knowledge and healing. Individuals who receive a vision of the Thunderbird during a fast or ceremony are considered to be greatly blessed. They are often destined to become powerful spiritual leaders or healers, as they have been touched by the guardian spirit itself, and given a measure of its power to help and protect their community. The influence of the Thunderbird is woven into the fabric of Ojibwe culture. Its image is a powerful symbol, often depicted in beadwork, on birchbark scrolls, and on ceremonial items. These are not mere decorations. They are invocations of the spirit's protective power. To carry the image of the Thunderbird is to carry a shield, a constant reminder of the guardian that watches from the sky. Even today, as the world changes, the story of the Thunderbird continues to resonate. It is a powerful metaphor for the ongoing struggle between order and chaos, creation and destruction, hope and despair battles that we all face in our own lives. It reminds us to look for the protectors, the forces for good, even when the storms of life seem overwhelming. It teaches us to respect the power of nature and to understand that we are part of a much larger, interconnected web of existence. The Ojibwe story of the Thunderbird is a beautiful and profound teaching. It transforms a frightening natural phenomenon into a story of divine protection, a cosmic battle waged for our benefit. It fills the sky not with random acts of weather, but with the presence of a mighty guardian, Anamaki, whose flashing eyes and beating wings ensure that balance will be maintained and that the world of light and life will always be protected from the encroaching dark. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the Sky Lodge of the Thunderbird. I hope this story has given you a new perspective on the power and beauty of a thunderstorm. If you enjoyed this exploration, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more chapters from the world of myth and legend. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, stay curious and look for the stories in the world around you. Hello, and welcome back to our journey through the mythologies of the world. Today, we venture into the heart of the Great Plains to explore the powerful beliefs of the Sioux and Dakota peoples. Get ready for Chapter 4. Sioux Tales of Power and Storm. For the Sioux, the universe was a place of profound balance, a cosmic dance between two mighty forces, ruling the upper world, the realm of the sky, were the magnificent Thunderbirds, or Wakia. These weren't just birds, they were immense, powerful spirits, their eyes flashing with lightning and the beat of their wings creating the sound of thunder. They were the masters of the storm, bringing the life-giving rains that nourished the earth. Beneath the surface of the waters, in the deep lakes and rivers, dwelled their counterparts. The water spirits, known as Antehi, often depicted as horned serpents or immense underwater beings. They governed the underworld. The constant interplay between the Thunderbirds in the sky and the Unkidi in the water represented a fundamental tension in the universe, a dynamic balance between sky and water, above and below. This wasn't a simple story of good versus evil. Both forces were respected and essential to the cosmic order. The Sioux didn't fear the storm. They revered it as a manifestation of the Thunderbird's power. They saw the rain not just as weather, but as a blessing, a direct gift from these sacred beings. This reverence was deeply woven into the fabric of their spiritual lives. Ceremonies were held to honor both the Thunderbirds and the water spirits. These were not acts of appeasement born from fear, but expressions of deep respect and a way to maintain harmony with the natural and spiritual worlds. Through specific songs, dances, and offerings, the people would acknowledge the power of these beings and their role in the cycle of life. Imagine the community gathering, the beat of the drum echoing the thunder, voices rising in songs that have been passed down for generations, all to honor the sacred powers that shape their world. These rituals reinforced the community's connection to the cosmos and their place within it. The Thunderbirds held a particularly special place in the hearts of warriors and spiritual leaders. To receive a vision of a Thunderbird was an incredibly significant event. For a shaman, it could be a call to their spiritual path, granting them the power to heal and guide their people. For a warrior, a Thunderbird vision was a profound sign of destiny and immense courage. It was believed that such a vision bestowed great spiritual power, making the warrior brave, resilient, and almost invincible in battle. This wasn't just a myth, it was a lived experience, a source of personal strength and identity. Think of it this way: a young warrior on a vision quest fasts and prays alone in the wilderness. Suddenly, the sky darkens, a storm rolls in, and in a flash of lightning, he sees the form of a great bird. That moment would change his life forever. He would carry the power and the blessing of the Thunderbird with him, a symbol of his courage and his destiny. He was now connected to one of the most powerful forces in the universe. The stories of the Sioux and Dakota teach us a different way of seeing the world. They show us a universe not of random chaos, but of intentional balance. They reveal a relationship with nature built on reverence, not domination. The roar of thunder wasn't something to hide from. It was the voice of a powerful spirit. The flash of lightning wasn't just electricity. It was a sign from the sacred. These tales of power and storm remind us that for many cultures, the line between the physical and the spiritual is beautifully blurred. The world is alive with meaning, and every element, from the rain that falls to the thunder that rolls, is part of a grand, sacred story. It is a perspective that encourages us to look at the world around us with a little more wonder and a lot more respect. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Sioux and Dakota beliefs. I hope it has given you a new appreciation for the depth and beauty of their traditions. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue our journey, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. Until next time, stay curious. Hello and welcome back to our journey into the mysteries of the past. Today, in Chapter 5, we venture into the heartlands of North America to explore some of the most enigmatic messages left by ancient peoples, petroglyphs, and sacred stones. Have you ever stood before a piece of ancient art and felt a connection across the centuries? That's the feeling we're chasing today. From the forests of Wisconsin and the plains of South Dakota, all the way to the rugged landscapes of Ontario. In these diverse locations, a recurring, powerful image is etched into stone, a massive bird, its wings spread wide as if soaring across the heavens. These aren't just simple bird drawings. They are monumental. Let's travel in our minds to a specific site in Wisconsin, nestled beside a quiet river. Here, carved into a large, flat slab of sandstone, is one of the most breathtaking examples. The petroglyph depicts a bird with an immense wingspan, stretching over 10 feet from tip to tip. The lines are deep, weathered by countless seasons, yet the image remains clear and potent. Imagine being there at dawn. As the first rays of morning sun creep over the horizon, they catch the edges of the carving just so. The low angle of the light creates long, dramatic shadows that seem to lift the great bird from the rock face. For a fleeting moment, it looks three-dimensional, almost alive, its wings casting a shadow over the ground below. It's an incredible sight, a piece of ancient theater played out by the sun and the stone. The people who created this clearly understood the movement of light and used it to animate their sacred art. They chose this specific rock, at this specific location, for a reason. The stone itself feels charged with energy, a silent witness to generations of ceremonies and storytelling. The details are fascinating. The head is often depicted in profile, with a sharp beak and a watchful eye. The body is stylized, but the wings are always the main event, grand, powerful, and meticulously rendered with lines that might represent individual feathers or patterns of spiritual energy. Standing there, you can't help but feel a sense of awe, the same awe its creators must have felt. And this isn't an isolated phenomenon. Similar giant bird carvings are found in South Dakota, etched into the rocks of the Black Hills. These are often located in high, prominent places, overlooking vast valleys. As if the birds themselves are guardians of the land, they share the same majestic scale, the same sense of powerful flight. Further north, in Ontario, among the Canadian Shield's ancient rock formations, we find them again. Here, they are sometimes painted onto cliff faces, their outlines bold against the granite. The consistency of this symbol across such a vast geographical area is astounding. It tells us that this image held a profound and shared significance for many different cultures. This brings us to the central mystery, a question that archaeologists and historians have debated for decades. What did these magnificent creatures represent? Were they purely symbolic? In many Native American traditions, birds, especially large ones like the eagle or the hawk, are sacred messengers. They fly closer to the Creator than any other being, carrying prayers from the earth to the spirit world. A giant bird, therefore, could represent the Thunderbird, a powerful mythological being central to the cosmology of many tribes. The Thunderbird is a figure of immense power, said to create thunder by flapping its wings and flash lightning from its eyes. It's a force of nature, both a protector and a bringer of life-giving rain, but also a figure of awesome, untamable power. Carving a Thunderbird would be a way to honor this mighty spirit, to seek its favor, or to mark a place where its power was felt most strongly. This interpretation fits beautifully with the grandeur and prominent placement of these petroglyphs. They are declarations of faith, etched into the very bones of the earth. But there's another, more tantalizing possibility to consider. What if these weren't just symbols of a myth? What if they were records of something the ancients actually saw? This question isn't meant to dismiss the rich spiritual beliefs, but to explore every angle. Could our ancestors have witnessed something in the sky that was so awe-inspiring, so massive, that the only way to describe and remember it was to carve its image into stone? Think about the world they lived in. Their sky was their television, their internet, their storybook. They knew the stars, the patterns of the weather, and the flight of every bird. An unfamiliar sight in the sky would have been a major event, something to be recorded and passed down through generations. The consistency in the depictions, the enormous wingspan, the specific shape, is striking. While it could be the result of cultural sharing of a myth, it could also be the result of multiple, independent sightings of a similar phenomenon. Let's be clear, we're not jumping to conclusions here. We are simply asking the same questions the stones themselves seem to pose. Were the ancients documenting a creature we no longer know, a species of giant bird that has since gone extinct? Paleontologists have found evidence of massive prehistoric birds, though their timelines don't always perfectly align with the age of these carvings. Or were they seeing something else entirely? Something that didn't fit into their known world of birds and animals? They whisper stories of faith, of nature, and perhaps of wonders that we can now only imagine. They remind us that the ancient world was just as complex and full of mystery as our own. The people who made them were keen observers, artists, and engineers of light and shadow. They left us a message, and it's our privilege to stand here, centuries later, and wonder what they were trying to tell us. As the sun climbs higher and the shadows on the great stone bird recede, the carving flattens again, its momentary life fading back into the rock. But the impression it leaves on your mind remains. You've shared a moment with the past, connected by a silent, powerful image. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of petroglyphs and sacred stones. The past is full of incredible stories waiting to be rediscovered. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. Until next time, keep looking and keep wondering. Imagine stepping off a ship, your feet touching the soil of a new, sprawling continent. The air is different, the trees are taller, and the silence of the wilderness is occasionally broken by sounds you've never heard before. This was the world that greeted the first European settlers in the 1600s and 1700s. They came with their own beliefs, their own science, and their own stories. But they were about to encounter stories far older and, in some ways, far grander than their own. As missionaries and explorers ventured deeper into the heart of North America, they began interacting with the diverse indigenous peoples who had called this land home for millennia. They documented the languages, the customs, the geography, and the legends. In their leather-bound journals, written by candlelight in makeshift forts or trading posts, a recurring and awe-inspiring figure began to emerge. A bird of immense size, a creature of the sky that could blot out the sun and command the weather. The missionaries, men of God and learning, recorded these tales with a mixture of scholarly curiosity and bewilderment. Was this a metaphor? A pagan deity? Or was it something real? In one Jesuit's account from the 1660s, he wrote of the Illinois people's reverence for a piasa bird, so large it could carry off a deer. He noted the terror and respect it commanded, how its image was painted high on cliff faces, a permanent guardian watching over the river. These weren't just bedtime stories. They were woven into the very fabric of daily life and spirituality. Explorers, men of a more practical nature, were equally perplexed. They were busy mapping rivers and cataloging new species of plants and animals. They dealt in the tangible, the measurable, yet they too heard these consistent accounts from different tribes, separated by hundreds of miles. Tales of a great bird whose flapping wings sounded like thunder, whose flashing eyes were like lightning. Could such a creature exist? It defied their European understanding of the natural world. There were no birds of that magnitude in the forests of England or France. This was a fascinating moment in history, a quiet, intellectual collision of two entirely different worldviews. On one side, you have native cosmology, a spiritual understanding of the world, where the natural and supernatural are seamlessly intertwined. The Thunderbird wasn't just an animal. It was a powerful spirit, a force of nature, a protector, and sometimes a punisher. It was as real and vital as the rain and the sun. On the other side, you have emerging European naturalism, a system of thought dedicated to observing, classifying, and explaining the world through empirical evidence. For a European naturalist, a bird was a biological organism. It had a wingspan, a nesting habit, a place in the Linnaean system of classification. The idea of a bird that could create storms was, to them, a myth, a piece of folklore. And yet, the stories were so persistent, so detailed. They weren't vague whispers. They were specific accounts. Some tales spoke of massive nests found high in the mountains, filled with the bones of large animals. Others described feathers so large that a single one could be used as a ceremonial robe. The settlers were caught in a dilemma. Their scientific minds told them it was impossible, but the earnest, consistent testimony from the native peoples gave them pause. Imagine a French fur trapper sitting by a fire with his Algonquin guides. As a storm rolls in across the Great Lakes, the sky darkens and thunder echoes across the water. He might see it as a meteorological event, but his guides would look to the sky with a different understanding. They would see the Thunderbird, battling the great horned serpent of the underworld. For them, the storm was a celestial conflict made manifest. The trapper, jotting it down in his journal later, might be unsure of what he truly believed. This period wasn't about conflict in the typical sense. It was a more subtle, reflective meeting of minds. It was about the challenge of understanding a reality completely different from your own. The journals from this era are filled with this sense of wonder and confusion. The writers grapple with what is myth and what is truth, often concluding that for the indigenous people, there was no distinction between the two when it came to the Thunderbird. The European settlers were trying to fit the Thunderbird into their own boxers. Was it a misidentified eagle, an exaggerated memory of a now extinct creature? Or was it, as the native stories insisted, a living, breathing spirit of the sky? These questions, born from those first encounters in the 1600s and 1700s, would echo down the centuries, fueling a mystery that continues to captivate us to this very day. The first settlers were surprised, not just by a new land, but by a new way of seeing the sky itself. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. If you find these historical mysteries as fascinating as we do, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We love reading your thoughts, so leave a comment below and let us know what you think. See you next time. Welcome back to our exploration of the unexplained. Today, we're diving into Chapter 7, Giant Birds in the New World. It's a journey back in time, piecing together fragments from a past that seems more like myth than history. Imagine this. You've just arrived in a vast, untamed continent. Everything is new, strange, and a little bit frightening. You're riding home, trying to describe the wonders and terrors of this new land. What do you write about? The fertile soil, the endless forests, or do you write about the day you saw something impossible soaring through the sky? That's exactly what many early settlers did, sifting through letters, diaries, and forgotten journals from the 17th and 18th centuries. A recurring, almost unbelievable theme emerges. These pioneers, men and women of practical means, described seeing birds of an impossible scale. One letter from a settler in the Appalachian Mountains, dated 1742, speaks of a shadow that fell over his entire homestead. He looked up, expecting a storm cloud, but instead saw, and I quote, "A bird of such magnitude it blotted out the sun, with a wingspan like that of a small ship's sail." Another account from a French trapper near the Ohio River Valley in the 1780s describes a creature he initially mistook for a low-flying cloud, until it banked and he saw its colossal form, larger than any eagle, larger than any living thing I had ever conceived could take to the air. These aren't just one or two isolated stories. They're scattered across the early American frontier. Reports from the vast Mississippi River region echo the same sense of awe and disbelief. Fur traders and explorers documented encounters with what they often called thunderbirds, a name borrowed from the rich traditions of Native American peoples who had spoken of these creatures for generations. One particularly vivid journal entry from a missionary in 1801 details a sighting over the Mississippi. He wrote, "Two of these immense avians circled high above the bluffs. Their cry was not a squawk but a deep, resonant boom that seemed to vibrate in my very bones. The local tribesman with me simply pointed and said the sky spirits were watching over the river. He estimated their wingspan to be at least 20 feet, maybe more. He was a man of God, not given to flights of fancy. Yet his words betray a profound sense of wonder and fear. Even in the more settled regions, these stories persisted. Early Pennsylvania settlers, known for their sober and industrious nature, shared tales among themselves of enormous eagles that would occasionally be seen gliding over the ridges of the Allegheny Mountains. They weren't just slightly larger eagles. The descriptions consistently point to something far more significant. A blacksmith in Lancaster County wrote to his brother back in Germany about a flying monster that reportedly snatched a young deer from a field. While this sounds like a tall tale, the consistency of the core details immense size. Dark feathers and a silent, gliding flightist, striking. Were these people all sharing the same delusion, or were they all seeing the same, very real, very large creature? So, What were they seeing? The skeptical and scientific mind immediately looks for a rational explanation. The most obvious candidate is the California condor. Today, these magnificent birds are critically endangered and restricted to a small range. But historically, their territory was much, much wider, potentially stretching across the continent. A California condor is an impressive sight, with a wingspan that can reach nearly 10 feet. To someone who had only ever seen the familiar birds of Europe, a condor would certainly appear gigantic. It's a plausible, sensible explanation. A large, dark bird, gliding silently over a valley it ticks many of the boxers. The distance and the shock of seeing such a large bird could easily lead to exaggerated estimations of size. But does it fully account for the descriptions? Does a 10-foot wingspan explain the accounts of birds the size of small planes or a creature that could blot out the sun? Settlers were familiar with large birds of prey. They knew eagles. They knew hawks. The language they used suggests they were witnessing something outside of their known reality, something that defied their understanding of the natural world. They repeatedly used words like monstrous, unnatural, and primeval. This leads us to a more intriguing, and perhaps more chilling, speculation. Could they have been witnessing something far older? Let's venture into the realm of cryptozoology and paleontology. We know that prehistoric North America was home to truly gigantic flying creatures. The teratorns, for instance, were a group of massive prehistoric birds of prey. The largest of them, *Ojibwe*, had a wingspan of at least 16 feet, maybe more. That's significantly larger than a condor and starts to approach the descriptions in these old accounts. These weren't dinosaurs. They were birds that lived during the Pleistocene epoch, sharing the landscape with mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and early humans. The conventional scientific view is that the last of the teratorns died out around 10,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. But what if they didn't? What if a small, relict population managed to survive, hidden away in the vast, unexplored mountain ranges and valleys of the New World? It's a concept known as a living fossil, an animal that survives long past its supposed extinction. The coelacanth, a fish thought to have died out with the dinosaurs, was famously rediscovered in 1938. Could the same be true for a giant bird? The North American continent in the 17th and 18th centuries was, for all intents and purposes, a lost world to the colonists. Huge swaths of it were completely unexplored by outsiders. It's conceivable that a species could survive for centuries, even millennia, in such isolation, their numbers dwindling until they were only seen on the rarest of occasions. Think about it. A creature perfectly adapted to soaring over vast distances, needing only remote cliffs for nesting and large carcasses for food. The sprawling wilderness of early America would have been the perfect, and perhaps the last, refuge for such an animal. The reports often come from rugged, mountainous areas, like the Appalachians or remote river valleys exactly, the kind of places a surviving population of Teratorians might cling to existence. The stories from the Mississippi region, with its high bluffs and abundant wildlife, also fit this pattern perfectly. Perhaps the enormous eagles of Pennsylvania weren't eagles at all, but the last descendants of an ancient lineage, ghosts from a bygone era, making their final, fleeting appearances before disappearing into the mists of legend forever. Whether these settlers saw exceptionally large condors, a surviving population of prehistoric giants, or something else entirely, we may never know for sure. The evidence is anecdotal, filtered through the lens of time and the natural human tendency to embellish the extraordinary. But the sheer volume and consistency of these reports from sensible, down-to-earth people suggests that something truly remarkable was soaring in the skies of the New World. The shadows they cast were real, and the awe and fear they inspired have echoed down through the centuries, leaving us with a tantalizing and enduring mystery. What giant birds roamed the early American skies? The truth, as always, may be stranger than we can imagine. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. What do you think these settlers saw? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoy unraveling historical mysteries like this one, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. We'll see you in the next chapter. Welcome bike history buffs and mystery lovers. Today, we're journeying back to the Old West, But we're not chasing outlaws or prospecting for gold. We're looking to the skies above one of America's most legendary towns. Let's travel to the year 1890, to the sun-scorched earth near Tombstone, Arizona, for a story that has baffled and intrigued people for over a century. The tale of the Tombstone Thunderbird. Imagine the scene. The vast, arid landscape of the Arizona Territory. The air is still and dry, broken only by the whisper of the wind across the desert floor and the distant cry of a hawk. Cacti stand like silent sentinels under a relentless sun. This is a land of hardy folk, cowboys, miners, and pioneers who have seen their fair share of strange sights, but nothing could have prepared them for what was about to unfold. The story, as it has been passed down, begins with two ranchers. These weren't men given two flights of fancy. They were practical, weathered individuals whose lives were tied to the land. One day, while on horseback, they spotted something utterly alien in the sky. It wasn't a bird they recognized, not an eagle or a condor. This creature was immense, a colossal winged being that blotted out the sun as it soared overhead. They described it as having smooth, reptilian-like skin, not feathers. Its wingspan was said to be enormous, some accounts claiming it was as wide as a barn. Its face was described as something out of a nightmare-long, powerful, and distinctly non-avian. In a mix of terror and instinct, the ranchers raised their rifles. The sound of gunshots echoed through the empty canyons, and to their astonishment, the creature faltered. It spiraled from the sky, crashing to the earth with a tremendous thud that shook the ground. Cautiously, they approached the fallen behemoth. Up close, it was even more terrifying. The sheer scale was unbelievable. The wings, they later claimed, were so vast that they had to be pinned back to get a full sense of the body. Here, in the dust of the Arizona desert, lay something that didn't belong to their world, or any world they knew. This is where the story takes a fascinating turn, evolving from a simple monster hunt into a legend of lost evidence. The ranchers, wanting to prove their incredible story, supposedly dragged the creature's massive carcass back to town. Can you imagine the spectacle? A prehistoric-looking monster being hauled through the dusty streets of Tombstone, a town already famous for the gunfight at the OK Corral. The townsfolk would have gathered, their faces a mixture of disbelief, fear, and sheer awe. Whispers would have turned into excited chatter. Was it a dragon? A survivor from a bygone age? The local newspaper, the Tombstone Epitaph, allegedly caught wind of the story, and this is the crux of the legend. A photograph was said to have been taken. This isn't just any old photograph. The description of this lost image has become as much a part of the folklore as the creature itself. The story goes that the photo depicted a group of townsmen standing in front of the creature's immense body, which was nailed to the side of a barn or livery stable. The men stood there, a testament to the creature's scale. Their proud, stoic faces immortalized alongside the impossible beast they had helped conquer. The image was supposedly published in the local paper, proof positive of this incredible event. And then it vanished. For decades, researchers, historians, and cryptozoologists have scoured archives, searching for this newspaper, for this photograph. They've hunted through the archives of the Tombstone Epitaph and other local papers of the era. They've looked for any official record, any diary entry, any corroborating evidence, but nothing has ever been found. No original article, and certainly no photograph. It's as if the proof and the creature itself was erased from history. So, what happened? Was it a cleverly crafted hoax? A tall tale spun by two ranchers to liven up a slow day? The Old West was rife with such stories. In an era before television and the internet, storytelling was a primary form of entertainment, and the more outlandish the tale, the better. A story about a giant, flying reptile would have spread like wildfire, capturing the imagination of a populace hungry for wonder and excitement. It's entirely possible that the story was born in a saloon, growing more embellished with each retelling, until it took on a life of its own. Newspapers at the time were also known for printing sensationalist stories, sometimes with little regard for the absolute truth. They were competing for readers, and a headline about a local dragon would certainly sell more copies than a story about cattle prices. The mention of a photograph could have been a journalistic flourish, a detail added to make the story more believable and compelling. never intending for it to be taken as literal fact a century later. But what if it wasn't a hoax? What if there's a kernel of truth to the story? Proponents of the theory point to similar sightings of large, unknown winged creatures throughout history and across the world. They argue that perhaps the ranchers didn't shoot down a pterosaur from the age of dinosaurs, but maybe a misidentified, exceptionally large bird, like a teratorn, a giant prehistoric bird of prey thought to be long extinct. Or perhaps it was something else entirely, something that science has yet to classify. The lack of evidence is, paradoxically, what keeps the legend so potent. Without the body, without the photograph, the story exists in a realm of possibility. It can't be definitively proven, but it can't be entirely disproven either. People have claimed to have seen the photograph in old books, in forgotten magazines, but whenever they go back to find it, it's gone. This memory of a photo that no one can produce has become its own phenomenon, a sort of collective Mandela effect for the cryptozoology community. The tale of the Tombstone Thunderbird is more than just a monster story. It is a piece of American folklore that captures the spirit of the Old West, a place where the line between reality and myth was often blurred, where the vast, untamed wilderness seemed capable of hiding any secret. It speaks to our deep-seated desire to believe that our world still holds wonders and mysteries yet to be discovered. Whether it was a prank, a misidentification, or a genuine encounter with an unknown creature, the story left an indelible mark. It created an echo that still reverberates through the canyons of Arizona and through the halls of cryptid lore. It reminds us that, sometimes, the most enduring legends are not the ones with all the answers, but the ones that leave us with the most tantalizing questions. What really soared through the sky over Tombstone in 1890? We may never know for sure. And perhaps that's exactly what makes the story so timeless. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this dive into historical mysteries, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the unknown. Let me know in the comments, what you think, was the Thunderbird real or just a tall tale? Until next time, keep questioning. Step right up, folks, and grab your morning paper. But this isn't your typical news day. We're diving deep into the late 19th century, a time when the ink on the page wasn't just for politics and local happenings. No, hidden within the rustling folds of newsprint, between advertisements for patent medicines and reports from the frontier, were stories that stretched the very fabric of belief. This is Chapter 9, Newsprint and Mystery. Imagine you're a farmer in Texas, around 1876. You've just finished your morning chores. The sun is barely peeking over the horizon, and you glance up at the sky. But what you see isn't a hawk or an eagle. It's something vast, something prehistoric. A shadow falls over your land, cast by wings so wide they seem to blot out the dawn. This wasn't a tall tale told around a campfire. This was a headline. Newspapers of the era, from dusty local presses to more established city publications, were buzzing with accounts of monster birds. These weren't just isolated incidents. The phenomenon spread like wildfire across the American heartland, from the plains of Kansas to the rolling hills of Missouri and down into the lush Ohio Valley. Reports flooded in. Eyewitnesses, often described as sober, hard-working citizens, spoke of enormous winged shapes soaring through the sky. Some accounts were chillingly specific, describing leathery wings, long, serpentine necks, and piercing cries that echoed through the valleys. They were often compared to pterodactyls, creatures known only from fossil records, supposedly brought back to life in the skies of a rapidly modernizing America. Think about the context of the time. This was an age of incredible discovery and rapid change. Dinosaur bones were being unearthed in the West, capturing the public imagination. The world was expanding, revealing wonders and oddities that challenged preconceived notions of what was possible. So, when a respectable citizen reported a gigantic bird swooping low over their farm, its massive wingspan casting an ominous shadow over the livestock, it was just plausible enough to be printed. The newspapers themselves played a crucial role. Sensationalism sold papers. Editors knew that a headline screaming about a sky terror or a winged monster would fly off the newsstands far faster than a dry report on crop prices. These stories were a form of entertainment, a shared cultural experience that blurred the lines between fact and folklore. Was it a case of mass misidentification? Perhaps people were seeing large birds like sandhill cranes or herons under unusual atmospheric conditions, their size exaggerated by fear and the power of suggestion. But let's lean into the wonder for a moment. What if they weren't just birds? The accounts often had a strange, almost dreamlike quality. One report from Missouri described a creature that was part alligator, part bat, with 3 sets of wings. Another, from the Ohio Valley, spoke of a creature that glowed with an eerie, internal light. These weren't just animals. They were monsters, plucked from the pages of mythology and set loose upon the American landscape. They represented the unknown, the untamed wilderness that, even in the late 19th century, still felt vast and full of secrets. This created a fascinating cultural feedback loop. The newspapers would publish a sensational account, which would then inspire more people to look to the skies. Any unusual sighting could then be interpreted through the lens of these monster bird narratives. A flock of geese flying in a strange formation at twilight could become a winged behemoth in the retelling. The stories took on a life of their own, becoming a part of the local folklore, passed down through generations. Skepticism, of course, was always present. Rival newspapers would often mock each other's monster stories, chalking them up to journalistic embellishment or outright hoaxes. Scientists of the day would dismiss the reports as nonsense, citing the impossibility of a prehistoric reptile surviving into the modern age undetected. And yet, the stories persisted. They tapped into a deep-seated human fascination with the monstrous and the mysterious. They were a way for people to grapple with a world that was changing at a dizzying pace, where the old certainties were giving way to a future that was both exciting and terrifying. These newsprint monsters did more than just sell papers. They shaped the American imagination. They were the precursors to the urban legends and cryptid tales of the 20th century. The Thunderbird, as it would later be called, became an enduring figure in American cryptozoology, a phantom of the skies that continues to capture our imagination to this day. The seeds of these modern myths were sown in the black and white print of those 19th century newspapers. The accounts were often tantalizingly vague on details, leaving much to the reader's imagination. A vast, dark shape, a blood-curdling shriek, a leathery wing. These fragments allowed each person to construct their own version of the monster in their mind's eye, making the threat feel both personal and universal. It was a shared nightmare, printed and distributed for a penny a copy. So, how do we look back on these stories today? Are they simply a humorous footnote in the history of American journalism, or are they something more? They reveal a moment in time when the line between the known and the unknown was still beautifully, thrillingly blurred. It was a time when looking up at the sky could mean seeing not just clouds and birds, but the possibility of magic, of mystery, and of monsters. The ink may have faded, and the papers may have yellowed, but the sense of wonder and fear they conjured remains as potent as ever. These stories remind us that our ancestors lived in a world that felt, in many ways, larger and more mysterious than our own. Before satellite imagery and 24-hour news cycles, there were still blank spaces on the map and dark corners of the sky where anything could hide. The monster birds of the 19th century weren't just hoaxes or misidentifications. They were a reflection of a nation's hopes, fears, and its boundless, untamed imagination. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the archives of the strange and unexplained. If you found this dive into history as fascinating as I did, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us continue to explore these forgotten corners of the past. Until next time, keep looking up. You never know what you might see. Have you ever heard stories of giant birds, so massive they could blot out the sun and create thunder with the beat of their wings? For centuries, tales of thunderbirds have echoed through cultures, captivating our imaginations. But what if these weren't just myths? What if they were fragmented memories of something real? As humanity entered an age of scientific inquiry, early naturalists and paleontologists started to look at these legends with a new kind of curiosity. They weren't just collecting stories. They were hunting for evidence, searching for a logical explanation behind the folklore. Instead of looking to the supernatural, they turned to the earth itself. Digging into the past to uncover the truth, they began asking a fascinating question. Could these legends of colossal flying creatures be rooted in the existence of real, prehistoric giants that once ruled the skies? This quest led them to the fossil record, a stony library of life's history, and what they found was astounding. Deep within the layers of rock, they unearthed the remains of birds that would dwarf any species alive today. Imagine a bird, a real, living creature, with a wingspan stretching up to 20 feet. That's the length of a small school bus. This wasn't a mythological beast. This was Territornis, a genus of enormous birds of prey that soared over North and South America. During the Pleistocene, the name itself, Territornis, means monster bird. And for good reason. These were true giants of the sky. The most famous species, Territornis merriami, has been extensively studied from fossils found in places like the Labritar pits in California. With a wingspan of around 12 feet and weighing up to 33 pounds, it was a formidable predator, far larger than today's California country. And Territornis wasn't even the biggest. In Argentina, scientists discovered an even more colossal species, Argentavisons. This incredible bird is one of the largest flying birds ever known to have existed. Its wingspan is estimated to have been a mind-boggling 20 to 23 feet. Just try to picture that. Stand in an average room and stretch your arms out wide now. Imagine a bird whose wingspan is twice that, or even more, weighing an estimated 150 pounds. Argentavis was a true titan. It lived around 6 million years ago, soaring on the thermal currents above the plains of South America. The sheer scale of these creatures is difficult to comprehend. They weren't just birds. They were living gliders, masters of the air on a scale we can barely imagine today. The discovery of these fossils provided a powerful, tangible link to the myths. It offered a scientific foundation for the legendary Thunderbird. The theory that emerged was as compelling as the legends themselves. Perhaps the stories were unpure fantasy. Perhaps they were a form of cultural memory, ancient echoes passed down through countless generations. Think about it. The first humans to arrive in the Americas would have shared the landscape with the last of these magnificent, giant birds. Imagine being an early human, venturing into a new continent, and looking up to see a creature like Territornis circling overhead. The shadow it cast would have been immense, the sight unforgettable, even terrifying. Such an encounter would undoubtedly have been a significant event, something worth talking about, something to be woven into the stories you tell your children around the fire. This idea of paleo-memories suggests that profound experiences with no extinct megafauna like giant sloths, mammoths, and, yes, colossal birds became embedded in the oral traditions of the earliest peoples. Over thousands of years, as the actual animals disappeared from the world, the stories remained. They would have transformed, of course. The details would blur, the descriptions becoming more symbolic and mythologized. The giant bird becomes the Thunderbird. Its powerful wing beats become the sound of thunder. The flash of its eyes becomes lightning. The scientific explanation doesn't diminish the power of the myth. In fact, it enriches it. It suggests that these stories are not just flights of fancy, but are instead a deep, ancestral connection to a lost world, a time when real monsters truly did rule the skies. The fossil evidence forces us to reconsider the line between myth and reality. The wingspans measured from the bones of Territornis and Argentavis match, and in some cases, exceed the descriptions found in folklore. These birds were real. They soared over the same mountains and plains that our distant ancestors first explored. While we Qiuoyan definitively prove that a specific sighting of an Argentavis directly led to a specific Thunderbird legend, the circumstantial evidence is incredibly strong. It shows us how human culture and the natural world are deeply intertwined. Our stories are shaped by our environment, and when that environment includes 20-foot-wide birds, it's no surprise that our stories become epic. So, the next time you hear a tale of a mythical beast, take a moment to wonder, could there be a kernel of scientific truth buried within the fantasy? The story of the Thunderbird, once seen as pure folklore, now stands as a powerful example of how science can illuminate our oldest legends. The scientific eyes on the sky didn't debunk the myth. They revealed its incredible, prehistoric origins. They gave the Thunderbird its fossilized bones. proving that the memory of giants soaring across the Americas wasn't just a dream, but a distant reality. The sky once held wonders that today live on only in stone and story, a testament to a world that was wilder and more magnificent than we can possibly imagine. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the intersection of myth, history, and science. Don't forget to ring the bell so you won't miss our next adventure. See you in the next video. Hello and welcome back to our journey through the myths and legends that shape our world. Today, we leave the sun-drenched plains behind and travel north to the vast, shimmering expanse of the Great Lakes. Here, surrounded by ancient forests of pine and birch, we find the lands of the Menominee and Winnebago peoples, whose stories are as deep and reflective as the waters they call home. Our focus today is on Chapter 11, The Great Lakes, Stormbringers. Imagine standing on the shore of Lake Michigan, the water stretching out like a boundless inland sea. The air is warm, thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Far in the distance, dark clouds begin to gather over the horizon, not with the sudden fury we've seen elsewhere, but with a slow, deliberate grace. For the people who have lived here for generations, this is not a sign of chaos, but a sacred event. This is the arrival of the Thunderbirds. Unlike their southern counterparts, the Thunderbirds of the Great Lakes were not primarily seen as warriors battling cosmic serpents. Instead, they were revered as benevolent bringers of life-giving rain. The Menominee and Winnebago believed these magnificent beings made their homes on the highest, most inaccessible mountains and cliffs that overlooked the great waters. From these lofty perches, they watched over the land and the people. When the earth grew thirsty and the crops needed water, the Thunderbirds would answer. They believed that the gentle roll of thunder was not a sound of anger, but the sound of the Thunderbirds' massive wings beating against the air as they soared from their mountain homes. The flash of lightning that illuminated the clouds was the glint from their powerful, supernatural eyes, scanning the landscape below. They were the masters of the storm, but a storm of a different kind of storm of renewal. Picture a soft summer shower beginning to fall. It's not a violent downpour, but a steady, gentle rain that mists through the pine forests. Each droplet lands on a leaf, a stone, a blade of wild rice, with a quiet patter that sounds like a whisper. The Menominee people, whose very name, Mamasekto, means the people of the wild rice, depended on this gentle, timely rain for their most sacred food source. For them, every single drop of rain was a direct gift from the Thunderbirds, a blessing delivered from the sky to nurture the earth. This belief fostered a deep, profound connection to the natural world. A summer storm wasn't something to be feared or endured. It was an event to be welcomed with gratitude. It was a time for reflection, a moment to feel the presence of these powerful spirits and acknowledge their role in the cycle of life. The sound of rain on a lodge roof was a lullaby, a promise of continued sustenance and balance. It was a reminder that even the most powerful forces of nature could be gentle, nurturing, and generous. The stories describe the Thunderbirds not just as forces of nature, but as beings with intention and wisdom. They were the gatekeepers of the upper world, mediators between the sky and the earth. When they brought the rain, they were performing a sacred duty, ensuring that life could flourish. The drumming of the thunder was their sacred song, a rhythm that called forth growth from the soil. The cool breeze that preceded the storm was their breath, cleansing the air and preparing the land to receive their gift. Imagine the perspective this gives. When you see clouds gathering, you don't just see a meteorological event. You see the Thunderbirds assembling. When you feel the first drops of rain, you feel a direct connection to a divine, benevolent power. The world becomes a living, breathing entity, filled with spirits and stories. The landscape itself is a sacred text, and the weather is its unfolding narrative. This gentler portrayal of the Thunderbird myth invites a sense of calm and contemplation. It speaks to a relationship with nature built on respect and reciprocity, not on fear or conquest. The Thunderbirds of the Great Lakes didn't demand sacrifice or appeasement in the way some deities do. They simply asked for respect and an understanding of the delicate balance they maintained. Their gift of rain was freely given, a part of a grand, harmonious cycle. As the storm passes, the world is transformed. The air is clean and fresh. The colors of the forest are deeper, more vibrant. The scent of rain-soaked earth, or petrichor, fills the air. For the Menominee and Winnebago, this renewal was the Thunderbird's final blessing before they returned to their mountain homes. Their duty fulfilled, the world was washed clean, ready to continue its cycle of growth and life. This chapter of the Thunderbird saga reminds us that power doesn't always have to be expressed through conflict. Sometimes, the greatest power is found in gentle, consistent nurturing. It's in the steady rain that coaxes life from the soil, in the quiet wisdom of balance, and in the belief that the world is a gift, given freely by the spirits that watch over it. As we reflect on these stories from the Great Lakes, let's carry with us this sense of peaceful connection. The next time you witness a soft summer rain, take a moment. Listen to the rhythm of the drops. Breathe in the scent of the damp earth. Perhaps you too can feel the gentle presence of the storm bringers and appreciate the simple, profound gift of rain. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of the Great Lakes myths. If these stories resonate with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the rich tapestry of world mythology. We love hearing your thoughts, so please share them in the comments below. Until next time, may you find stories and wonder in the world around you. Come with me, let's journey north, to a land where ancient forests meet the vast, gray expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Here, along the rugged coastlines of what we now call British Columbia and Alaska, the air is thick with mist and the scent of cedar and salt. This is the ancestral home of the Tlingit and Haida peoples, cultures woven from the very fabric of this powerful landscape. For thousands of years, they have lived in harmony with the tides, the forests, and the creatures that dwell within them. Their stories are not just tales, they are the living history of the land, passed down through generations, carved into totem poles, and whispered on the wind. Today, we'll listen for the echoes of one of their most powerful and revered beings, a guardian who commands the sky and the sea. We're going to explore the legend of the Thunderbird. Imagine standing on a pebble beach, the waves crashing rhythmically against the shore. The sky above is a canvas of shifting gray clouds. Suddenly, the sky darkens, not with an ordinary storm, but with the shadow of something immense. From the heavens descends a creature of magnificent power, a bird so large its wingspan could blot out the sun. This is the Thunderbird. In Tlingit and Haida traditions, the Thunderbird is not merely a mythical bird. It is a divine entity, a chief of the upper world. Its presence is a force of nature itself. The clap of its wings is the thunder that rolls across the mountains, and the flash of its eyes is the lightning that splits the sky. It is a being of immense strength and authority, a bridge between the celestial and the terrestrial worlds. When the Thunderbird appears, the world pays attention. It is a symbol of power, transformation, and the raw, untamable spirit of the Pacific Northwest. Now, let's look closer at this incredible being. The Thunderbird is often depicted with a sharply curved beak, prominent, curling horns, or ear tufts that signify its supernatural status, and vast, powerful wings. But it's what the Thunderbird carries that truly reveals its dominion over this coastal world. Clutched in its mighty talons, you will often find an orca, the great whale of the sea. This isn't a scene of simple predation. It's a profound symbol of cosmic balance. The Thunderbird, ruler of the sky, provides for its people by hunting the most powerful creature of the ocean, the orca, which it considers its whale. To accomplish this, the Thunderbird had special tools. Legends speak of it carrying lightning snakes under its wings. These were living creatures, sometimes depicted as serpent-like beings, which the Thunderbird would hurl down as lightning bolts to stun its prey. Picture it. The great bird soaring high above the churning sea, releasing a blinding flash of energy to hunt the mighty whale below. This powerful imagery illustrates the Thunderbird's role as a supreme provider and a master of the elements, controlling both the storm above and the life within the deep. The Thunderbird's relationship with humanity is complex and deeply significant. It is seen as an ancestor, a powerful clan crest, and a guardian figure. Many stories tell of the Thunderbird's interactions with people, sometimes as a fearsome force of nature, other times as a benevolent protector. One famous Tlingit story tells of a time when a village was starving because a monstrous creature was blocking the river, preventing the salmon from running. The people prayed for help, and their cries were answered by the Thunderbird. It descended from its mountain home, engaged in a tremendous battle with the monster, and ultimately defeated it, freeing the river and allowing the salmon to return. In this way, the Thunderbird acted as a divine intervention, a savior who restored balance and ensured the survival of the people. It demonstrates that while its power is immense and should be respected, its purpose is often to maintain order and protect those who honor it. The Thunderbird is a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming challenges, a greater power watches over the world, ready to restore harmony. This role as a guardian is most visibly immortalized in the art of the totem pole. If you were to walk through a traditional Tlingit or Haida village, you would see these monumental carvings rising towards the sky. They are not just decorations. They are historical documents, family crests, and spiritual markers. And more often than not, perched at the very top of these poles, with its wings outstretched, is the Thunderbird. Its placement is deliberate and deeply meaningful. From this high vantage point, the Thunderbird watches over the village, its family, and the clan it represents. Its presence is a constant, silent declaration of power and protection. It stands as a guardian against harm, both physical and spiritual. With its keen eyes, it surveys the land, the sea, and the sky, ensuring the delicate balance between these realms is maintained. The Thunderbird on a totem pole is a symbol of lineage, a story of an encounter with this great being in the family's past, and a promise of its continued vigilance for all future generations. The Thunderbird's influence extends beyond the totem poles and into the very heart of Tlingit and Haida ceremony and daily life. Its image is woven into magnificent chilkat blankets, carved into intricate masks used in potlatches and dances, and painted on the fronts of clan houses. When a dancer wears a Thunderbird mask, they are not just performing a story. They are channeling the spirit of the Thunderbird itself. The movements of the dance, the sound of the drums, and the songs that are sung all work together to bring the essence of this powerful being into the human world. It's a way of honoring the Thunderbird, remembering its deeds, and reaffirming the connection between the clan and their spiritual protector. These ceremonies are a living link to the ancestors and the mythic time when the world was shaped. By embodying the Thunderbird, the people reinforce their identity, their history, and their place within the cosmos. The Thunderbird is more than a legend. It is an active, present force in the cultural and spiritual life of the community. As we stand in this misty, coastal forest, surrounded by the towering cedar trees that provide the wood for the totem poles, we can feel the enduring power of these stories. The legend of the Thunderbird is a beautiful testament to the Tlingit and Haida people's deep understanding of the world around them. It's a world where the sky and the sea are locked in an eternal dance, where nature is both a provider and a powerful force to be respected, and where spiritual beings actively participate in the lives of humans. The Thunderbird, carrying the orca in its talons, with lightning snakes under its wings, is the ultimate expression of this worldview. It represents power, but also responsibility. It is a symbol of transformation, but also of stability. It is the guardian who watches from above, ensuring that the world remains in balance. The stories of the Thunderbird are not relics of a forgotten past. They are alive today, continuing to inspire, to teach, and to connect people to their heritage and their environment. They remind us that the world is full of wonder and power, and that we are part of a much larger story. They encourage us to look at the world with a sense of awe, to respect the forces of nature, and to understand our own place within the grand, interconnected web of life. The next time you hear a roll of thunder in the distance, or see a flash of lightning split the sky, take a moment. Think of the misty coasts of the Pacific Northwest, and listen for the beat of a giant's wings. You might just be hearing the presence of the great Thunderbird, the guardian of the sky and sea. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of Tlingit and Haida mythology. I hope it gave you a new appreciation for the richness and depth of these incredible cultures. If you enjoyed this exploration and want to learn more about the fascinating stories that shape our world, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world and helps us continue to share these powerful tales. Until next time, stay curious. Sound of wind blowing across a vast, open space, mixed with a distant, low rumble of thunder. Welcome back, fellow explorers of myth and history. Today, our journey takes us from the misty forests of the north and the rolling plains of the east to the sun-drenched landscapes of the American Southwest. Here, under the vast, unforgiving sky, the Thunderbird takes on a new, vital role. It is not just a symbol of power, but the very essence of survival. In the arid lands of present-day Arizona and New Mexico, the Hopi and Apache people have lived for centuries. Their world is one of stark beauty, where life clings tenaciously to the dry earth. For them, water is the most precious gift, and the being that brings it is revered above all. This is the realm of the Thunderbird, the bringer of rain, the giver of life. Imagine standing on a high mesa, the red rock warm beneath your feet. The sun beats down, and the air is still and dry. The corn stalks in the fields below are wilting. For weeks, maybe months, not a single drop of rain has fallen. The people look to the sky, their prayers carried on the wind. They are waiting for a sign, for the distant beat of powerful wings. Unlike the warrior figures we've seen elsewhere, the southwestern Thunderbird is primarily a benevolent life-sustaining force. It is an integral part of the natural order, a sacred being whose arrival signals the end of drought and the renewal of the land. The stories here are less about conflict and more about connection, balance, and a deep, profound respect for the forces of nature. The Hopi, for example, have a rich ceremonial life deeply intertwined with the cycles of the seasons. Their dances are prayers, emotion, intricate rituals designed to maintain harmony with the spiritual world and ensure the well-being of the community. When they call for rain, they are calling upon the thunder beings, the powerful spirits who ride the storm clouds. Picture a village plaza, the heart of the community. The rhythmic beat of a drum begins, a deep, resonant sound that mimics the first rumbles of a distant storm. The sound echoes off the pueblo walls, a heartbeat for the entire land. Dancers emerge, their bodies painted with symbols of lightning and clouds. Their movements are precise, learned over generations, each step a plea, each gesture an offering. They might wear headdresses adorned with feathers, representing the sky world, and carry rattles that sound like falling rain. These are not mere performances. They are sacred ceremonies, a direct communication with the elemental forces. The dancers embody the thunder beings themselves, their powerful stomps upon the earth meant to awaken the sleeping spirits of the underworld and draw the rain from the sky above. The entire community participates, their focused intention and collective energy rising with the dust from the plaza. It is a powerful demonstration of faith and a deep understanding of their reliance on the natural world. The Apache people, known for their resilience and deep connection to the land, also hold the Thunderbird in high esteem. Their stories often depict the thunder beings as guardians, protectors of sacred places. For them, a thunderstorm is not something to be feared, but to be respected. It is the voice of the spirits, a cleansing force that purifies the land and washes away the old, making way for new growth. The flash of lightning is the Thunderbird's eye, seeing all, and the clap of thunder is its voice, speaking truths that only the wise can understand. This is where myth beautifully bridges with ecology. These ancient stories and ceremonies are, in essence, sophisticated systems of environmental knowledge passed down through generations. They teach a crucial lesson, that humans are not separate from nature, but a part of it. The ceremonies honoring the Thunderbird instill a profound respect for the delicate balance of the desert ecosystem. They teach patience during times of drought and gratitude during times of plenty. The stories encode practical wisdom. They remind the people that the rains will eventually come, that the cycle of drought and renewal is a natural part of life in the Southwest. This understanding fosters resilience, community cohesion, and a sustainable way of living. By personifying the storm as the Thunderbird, these cultures created a powerful framework for relating to their environment. You don't exploit a sacred being, you honor it. You don't waste the gifts of a powerful spirit, you cherish them. These beliefs shaped everything, from farming techniques designed to conserve every drop of water, to the location of their villages, often built near natural springs or in places that could best capture rainfall. The Thunderbird wasn't just in the sky. Its influence was etched into the very fabric of their daily lives. It was in the patterns woven into their baskets, the symbols painted on their pottery, and the prayers whispered by the elders. So, as we look at the Thunderbird of the Southwest, we see more than just a mythical creature. We see a powerful symbol of hope, a teacher of ecological wisdom, and a central figure in a worldview that emphasizes harmony and respect. It shows us how ancient peoples used storytelling and ritual to navigate a challenging environment, not by trying to conquer it, but by learning to live in balance with it. The rhythmic beat of the ceremonial drum is a reminder that the heartbeat of the people and the heartbeat of the land are one and the same. When the storm finally breaks and the cool rain begins to fall, it is not just a meteorological event. It is a blessing, an answer to their prayers, and a reaffirmation of their sacred bond with the Thunderbird, the eternal bringer of life to the desert. Thank you for joining us on this part of our journey. The story of the Thunderbird is vast and varied, and next time we will soar to new heights as we explore its modern legacy and enduring power in our contemporary world. If you're enjoying this exploration, please consider liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss the final chapter. We'll see you then. Hello and welcome back to our journey into the unknown. Today, we leave the ancient past behind and travel to the heart of America, to the rolling fields and quiet towns of the Midwest. This is Chapter 14, Midwestern Encounters. The 20th century brought with it incredible advancements, but some mysteries remained, soaring just out of reach. In places like Illinois, Missouri, and Ohio, a new chapter of an old story was being written, not in dusty tomes, but in the quiet, earnest accounts of everyday people. These weren't tales of ancient gods, but of something tangible, something modern, something immense. Imagine working in your field under the vast Illinois sky, the sun warm on your back. Suddenly, a shadow falls over you, so large and so complete that for a moment you think a storm cloud has blocked the sun. You look up, and there it is, a bird, but unlike any you've ever seen. It's jet black, and its wingspan, well, people would later say it was the length of a car. It doesn't cry out, it doesn't circle menacingly. It just glides a silent, majestic silhouette against the blue before disappearing over the horizon. This is the kind of story that began to trickle out of the heartland. These weren't frantic, terrified reports. They were hushed, spoken with a sense of wonder and disbelief. A farmer in Missouri, taking a break by his barn, described seeing one land for a moment in a distant field. He said it was so big he thought it was a piece of farm machinery at first. It folded its enormous wings and stood there, a dark statue in the golden light of late afternoon, before taking to the air again with a few powerful, silent beats. Hikers in Ohio's dense forests shared similar encounters. They'd be walking along a trail, lost in the tranquility of the woods, when they'd feel a sudden drop in temperature, a strange stillness in the air. Looking up through the canopy, they'd catch a glimpse of an impossibly large wing cutting through the treetops, blotting out the patchwork of sky. There was no sound, just the sight of this colossal creature moving with an eerie grace. The feeling they were left with wasn't fear, but a profound sense of awe, of having witnessed something that didn't quite belong in their world. Even children saw them. A group of kids playing hide-and-seek in a cornfield near Springfield, Illinois, spoke of a giant black airplane that wasn't an airplane at all. They said it flew so low they could see its head turn, as if it were looking down at them. They didn't scream or run. They just watched, mesmerized, as this living shadow passed over them. When they told their parents, it was often dismissed as a child's fantasy, but the kids knew what they saw. The memory stuck with them, a quiet, personal secret. What connects all these accounts is the peacefulness of the encounters. These giant birds were not depicted as monsters. They were simply there. Observers didn't feel threatened. They felt small. They felt like they had accidentally peered into a different reality, one where the skies were home to creatures far grander than science had accounted for. The recurring detail is the silence. No terrifying squawks, no thunderous flapping, just a whisper of wind over massive wings and the passing of a shadow. Could it be a misidentified crane or a vulture, its size exaggerated by the shock of the moment? Perhaps. The sandhill crane has an impressive wingspan, but the length of a car that pushes the boundaries of known biology. Could it be a collective folk memory? The old legends of the Thunderbird resurfacing in a modern context? That's certainly possible. The human mind is a powerful thing, capable of weaving stories to make sense of the inexplicable, but the sincerity of the witnesses is hard to dismiss. These were grounded, practical people, farmers, hikers, families not prone to flights of fancy. They spoke of what they saw with a quiet conviction, often reluctant to even share the story for fear of ridicule. They weren't seeking attention. They were trying to process an experience that defied their understanding of the natural world. They saw a shadow pass over the sun and were left with a question that hangs in the air to this day. The mystery of the Midwestern Thunderbird isn't one of terror, but of wonder. It speaks to the idea that no matter how much we map and explore, there are still pockets of the world, even in the familiar landscapes of our own backyards, that hold secrets. It's the gentle mystery of a silent giant, a fleeting shadow that reminds us that the sky above is still vast, deep, and full of possibilities we can only begin to imagine. It's a quiet encounter that leaves a lasting, profound impression. Thank you so much for joining me on this leg of our journey. It's the quiet stories, the ones whispered between neighbors and passed down in families, that often hold the most enduring mystery. If you enjoyed this exploration, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more chapters from the world of the unknown. We'd love to have you with us as we continue to seek out these incredible stories. Until next time, keep looking up. Imagine a quiet summer evening in the American Midwest. The year is 1977, the month is July, and in the small town of London, Illinois, the sun is beginning to set, casting long shadows across green lawns. Children are playing outside, their laughter echoing in the warm air, trying to squeeze every last drop of fun out of the day before their parents call them in for the night. It's a scene of pure, simple American life. But on this particular evening, July 25th, something happened that would forever etch Lawndale into the annals of unexplained phenomena. Something that would transform a peaceful evening into a terrifying ordeal and reignite ancient legends of monstrous birds. Among the children playing in a backyard was 10-year-old Marlon Lowe. He was with his friends, running and shouting, completely unaware that they were being watched from above. His mother, Ruth Lowe, was nearby, keeping a casual eye on them. The tranquility was shattered in an instant. Suddenly, the sky seemed to darken, and two enormous birds descended from the heavens. These were not any birds the residents of Lawndale had ever seen before. They were colossal, with wingspans estimated to be at least 10 feet wide, dark bodies, and long, hooked beaks. They looked like something straight out of a prehistoric nightmare. The birds circled low, their massive wings making a whooshing sound that cut through the evening air. Panic erupted. The children screamed and scattered, running for the safety of their homes. But Marlon wasn't fast enough. As his mother watched in horror, one of the gigantic creatures swooped down towards her son. It gripped Marlon's shoulder with its sharp talons, the claws digging into the fabric of his shirt. And then, the unthinkable happened. The bird began to lift him off the ground. For a few terrifying seconds, Marlon Lowe was airborne, carried by a creature that defied all logical explanation. He was lifted about 2 feet into the air and carried for a distance of nearly 40 feet. Ruth Lowe's maternal instincts took over. She let out a blood-curdling scream and ran towards her son, waving her arms frantically. "It's got my baby," she cried out. Her desperate screams, along with the terrified shouts of the other witnesses who had come running, seemed to startle the creature. It released its grip. Marlon dropped to the ground, miraculously unharmed but deeply shaken. The two giant birds then ascended, circled once more, and flew Hawaii, disappearing as mysteriously as they had appeared. The aftermath was chaos. The Lowe family was in shock. Neighbors gathered in disbelief, and the story spread like wildfire. When the authorities arrived, they found a terrified boy and a group of credible, sober-minded witnesses all telling the same unbelievable story. There were about 6 witnesses in total, including Ruth and other adults who had seen the event unfold. Their accounts were consistent. 2 gigantic, dark-colored birds, far larger than any known native species, had descended, and one had attempted to carry off a child. The story was so extraordinary that it quickly attracted the attention of the media and paranormal investigators. This wasn't just some vague sighting of a strange light in the sky. This was a physical interaction, a Class C encounter in cryptozoological terms, where a creature leaves tangible evidence or directly interacts with a human. In this case, The creature had physically lifted a 10-year-old boy. Researchers, including the legendary cryptozoologist Loren Coleman, flocked to Lawndale to investigate. They interviewed the witnesses, examined the site, and tried to make sense of what had happened. One of the first questions they had to answer was, what kind of bird could do this? The description given by the witnesses didn't match any known bird in North America. The most common suspect proposed by skeptics was the turkey vulture, or perhaps a great blue heron. However, neither of these birds has the size, strength, or, crucially, the talons capable of lifting a 56-pound boy. Turkey vultures have weak feet designed for walking, not grasping. Herons are large but lanky and certainly not strong enough. The witnesses were adamant. What they saw was much larger and more powerful. They described a bird that looked more like a condor, but even the largest condor, the Indian condor, is not native to Illinois and still likely lacks the sheer power to lift a child of Marlin's weight. The descriptions provided by Ruth Lowe and the others were chillingly specific. They spoke of birds with white rings around their long necks, a feature that aligns with no known North American bird of that size. This detail only deepened the mystery. Was it a case of mistaken identity, magnified by fear and panic? Or had the people of Lawndale genuinely witnessed a creature unknown to science? This is where the story of the Lawndale incident connects with a much older, deeper mythology. It echoes the ancient legends of the Thunderbird. For centuries, Native American cultures across the continent have told stories of giant, powerful birds that could create thunder with the beat of their wings and shoot lightning from their eyes. These weren't just birds. They were powerful spirits, forces of nature that were both revered and feared. To the Alinuek people, the original inhabitants of the land where Lawndale now stands, the Piasa bird was a similar creature, a monstrous bird-like dragon that was said to devour men. An ancient petroglyph of this creature was famously painted on the bluffs overlooking the Mississippi River, not far from Lawndale. Could the creatures that visited Lawndale in 1977 be a modern-day manifestation of these ancient legends? Were they surviving descendants of a prehistoric species, like the giant birds that lived in North America during the Pleistocene epoch, and had wingspans of up to 12 feet? It's a tantalizing idea. The notion that these mythic beasts are not myths at all, but rare, living animals that have managed to survive, hidden from human eyes, in the remote corners of the world. Of course, skepticism is a necessary part of any serious investigation. Many have tried to debunk the Lawndale incident over the years. Some suggest the witnesses misidentified a known bird in the poor light of dusk. Others propose it was a collective hallucination or an exaggerated story that grew with each telling. The local sheriff at the time, though taking the report seriously, remained officially unconvinced, stating there was no concrete evidence. But the conviction of the witnesses never wavered. For them, it was not a story or a hallucination. It was a real, terrifying event that happened to their family in their backyard. The Lawndale incident remains one of the most compelling and debated cases in the history of cryptozoology. It stands apart because of the number of witnesses and the sheer audacity of the creature's alleged actions. It wasn't just a fleeting glimpse. It was a direct, aggressive interaction. It forces us to confront the possibility that the world is still full of mysteries, and that ancient legends might have a basis in reality. What do you think happened on that summer evening in 1977? Was it a simple misidentification blown out of proportion? Or did 10-year-old Marlon Lowe have a genuine, terrifying encounter with a living Thunderbird? The case remains officially unsolved. A modern piece of folklore that blurs the line between myth and reality, reminding us that even in a quiet, ordinary town, the extraordinary can descend from the sky at any moment. The story serves as a powerful testament to the enduring power of mystery and the possibility that giant, unknown creatures might still soar through our skies. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Lawndale incident. It's a story that has fascinated me for years, and I hope you found it as intriguing as I do. If you have your own theories or know of similar stories, please share them in the comments below. I'd love to read them, and if you enjoyed this journey into the unexplained, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more explorations of strange and mysterious events. We have so much more to uncover together. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Welcome, bike seekers of the unknown. Today, we journey into Chapter 16, Skeptics and Shadows. In our quest for understanding, it is essential to walk with one foot in the world of wonder and the other firmly planted in the realm of reason. For every breathtaking tale of a winged marvel, there exists a chorus of rational explanations, each deserving of our careful consideration. These don't diminish the mystery. Instead, they add layers to it, challenging us to look closer and think deeper. So, let's dim the lights, open our minds, and explore the logical possibilities that dance in the shadows of these grand legends. One of the most common and logical explanations for extraordinary sightings is simple mistaken identity. The human mind is a powerful, creative tool, but it's not infallible. In a fleeting moment, under poor lighting or from a great distance, our brains work tirelessly to fill in the gaps. What might have been a common animal, seen in an unusual posture or an unfamiliar environment, can be instantly transformed by our perception into something else. Imagine a large heron, its long neck tucked in, wings spanning wide as it takes flight at dusk. To the surprised observer, for just a second, its silhouette might not register as a familiar bird but as something altogether more mysterious, its form distorted by the twilight. This isn't a failure of our senses, but a testament to our brain's incredible ability to interpret and categorize the world around us, even if it sometimes gets the details wonderfully wrong. The world is full of creatures that can surprise us. Let's talk about some of the prime candidates for these cases of mistaken identity. Consider the eagle, a true monarch of the sky, with wingspans that can exceed 7 feet. Birds like the bald eagle or the golden eagle are formidable predators. Seeing one up close, especially if you're not accustomed to it, can be a genuinely awe-inspiring, almost startling experience. Now, picture one of these magnificent birds soaring against a dramatic, stormy sky, or perhaps carrying an unusually large fish or a rabbit. The added element can distort its shape, making it appear even larger and more monstrous than it already is. Its powerful silhouette, combined with its sheer size, can easily be misinterpreted, especially by someone caught off guard. In the heat of the moment, a 7-foot wingspan can easily become a 10-foot or even a 15-foot wingspan in the telling of the tale. Memory, like perception, is a creative process. And it's not just eagles. Let's not forget the American white pelican. This is a bird that many people do unrealize can have a staggering wingspan of up to 9 or even 10 feet. They are enormous. Now, pelicans are typically associated with coastal areas, but they migrate vast distances over land, often flying in V formations high in the sky. An individual separated from its flock, or seen out of its usual context, could be a truly baffling sight. Its bright white plumage might catch the setting sun in a way that makes it seem to glow, and its distinctive pouch could be obscured, altering its profile completely. Someone in a landlocked state looking up and seeing this colossal, unfamiliar bird might logically conclude they've witnessed something entirely new to science, a creature of myth, when in reality it was a perfectly natural, albeit misplaced, traveler on its ancient migratory path. Beyond misidentifying known animals, we must also consider the powerful role of optical illusions. Our atmosphere is not an empty void. It's a dynamic, shifting lens made of air, moisture, dust, and temperature gradients. These elements can bend and distort light in fascinating ways. Think of a heat haze shimmering over a road on a hot day, making distant objects appear to wobble and float. This same phenomenon, known as a mirage, can occur on a larger scale. A bird flying low over a body of water or a sun-baked field might appear magnified, its shape stretched and warped by layers of air at different temperatures. What was an ordinary bird can suddenly seem gigantic, its movements unnaturally fluid and strange. This isn't a trick of the mind, but a real physical affected trick of the light itself, painting a fleeting, fantastical image in the sky for an unsuspecting witness. The weather and lighting conditions at the time of a sighting are critically important details. A storm front, for example, creates a dramatic, dark backdrop that can make any object silhouetted against it seem more significant and ominous. The strange, yellowish light that often precedes a severe thunderstorm can alter colors and cast long, eerie shadows, transforming the familiar into the fantastic. Fog and mist are masters of disguise. They soften edges, obscure details, and play tricks with our sense of distance and scale. A bird flying through a thick bank of fog might appear for only a moment, a huge, dark shape emerging from the gray and vanishing just as quickly. In that brief, disorienting glimpse, our minds can't process the details, and we are left only with the impression of something vast and mysterious, a phantom of the mist. Perspective is another key factor. An object's apparent size is entirely dependent on its distance from us and the context surrounding it. A bird with a 6-foot wingspan flying just 100 feet overhead will look enormous, a veritable monster blotting out the sky. That samabird seen a mile away becomes a mere speck. Now, if there are no familiar objects nearby, for scale no trees, no buildings, no telephone poles, our brains lose their ability to accurately judge size and distance. A large bird flying against a blank, empty sky is a canvas onto which our imagination can project any scale it chooses. Without those crucial reference points, our estimation of its size can become wildly inaccurate, ballooning from the impressive to the truly impossible. We are tricked not by the sky, but by the emptiness within it. So, where does this leave us? Does embracing these rationale explanations mean we must abandon the wonder? Absolutely not. This is perhaps the most beautiful part of the journey. Science and wonder are not opposing forces. They are partners in the exploration of reality. Belief and disbelief can, and should, coexist peacefully within each of us. One part of our mind can be grounded in the elegant logic of physics and biology, understanding how light bends and how perception can be skewed. This is the part that finds beauty in the intricate mechanics of the natural world, in the majestic reality of a 10-foot pelican, or the atmospheric trick that creates a mirage. It finds satisfaction in the puzzle, in piecing together the clues to find a logical solution. At the same time, another part of us can remain open to the magic, to the possibility of the unknown. This is the part that hears the story of a winged creature and feels a thrill of excitement, a sense of awe at a world that might still hold gigantic, undiscovered secrets. This is the wonder that fuels our curiosity and our drive to explore in the first place. One can appreciate the scientific explanation for a phenomenon while still cherishing the emotional experience of the witness who saw a monster. You can believe that a sighting was likely a heron in the fog, while also holding a space for the tiny, thrilling possibility that it was something more. This balance is not a contradiction. It is wisdom. It allows us to be both critical thinkers and hopeful dreamers. The world is a vast and incredible place, filled with phenomena that are both perfectly explainable and profoundly mysterious. By embracing the skeptical view, we don't close a door. We simply open a different one that leads to a deeper appreciation for the complexities of nature and the human mind. We learn to see the magic not just in the potential monster, but in the atmospheric lens that created it, in the powerful ego that was mistaken for it, and in the intricate workings of the brain that perceived it. The search for truth is not about choosing a side between science and myth. It's about walking the path between them, with an open heart and a curious mind, marveling at the shadows and the light in equal measure. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of skepticism and shadows. I hope it's given you a new lens through which to view these incredible stories. The mystery is not diminished by reason. It is enriched by it. If you enjoyed this journey into the rational side of wonder, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell. Your support allows us to continue exploring all facets of the unknown. Until next time, keep looking up and keep asking questions. Have you ever seen this logo? Or this one? What about the name of this classic car? It's the Thunderbird, a symbol so common in our modern world that we often see it without even thinking about its origin. From the logos of sports teams to the names of rock bands, the Thunderbird is everywhere, a powerful icon of strength and freedom. But this isn't just a cool design. It's a sacred figure with a deep, rich history that stretches back centuries, long before it became a pop culture phenomenon. Today, we're diving into the fascinating journey of the Thunderbird, tracing its path from a revered spiritual being in indigenous cultures to a global symbol in the modern age. How did a sacred guardian of the skies become a mascot, a brand, and a movie monster? And more importantly, as we celebrate its power, how do we honor its sacred origins with the respect they deserve? Let's explore the enduring legacy of the Thunderbird in modern myth. The most visible modern interpretation of the Thunderbird is undoubtedly in sports and branding. Think about it. The Seattle Thunderbirds in hockey, the Southern Utah Thunderbirds in college sports. Why do they all choose this name? Because the Thunderbird represents everything a team wants to be: powerful, dominant, and victorious. The image of a massive bird controlling the thunder and lightning is the ultimate symbol of unconquerable strength. When a team calls themselves the Thunderbirds, they're not just picking a name, they're invoking an ancient power, tapping into a myth that speaks of overwhelming force and a commanding presence. This association with power also made it the perfect name for the iconic Ford Thunderbird, a car that, for decades, symbolized American style, freedom, and performance. The name suggested a vehicle that was not just a mode of transportation, but a force of nature you could command on the open road. It's a brilliant piece of marketing that perfectly captures the spirit of the legend. This commercialization, however, takes the Thunderbird further and further away from its original spiritual context, transforming it from a sacred being into a commodity, a symbol of consumer power rather than natural or divine power. Beyond logos and brands, the Thunderbird has soared onto our screens, big and small. In movies and television, its portrayal often splits into two distinct paths. On one hand, it's frequently depicted as a magnificent, powerful creature, a force of nature to be respected and admired. Think of its appearance in the Fantastic Beasts series, where the Thunderbird is a majestic, weather-controlling magical beast, noble and awe-inspiring. This interpretation aligns with the more positive aspects of the original myths, casting the Thunderbird as a guardian or a powerful ally. On the other hand, Hollywood loves a good monster story. The Thunderbird is sometimes simplified and transformed into a terrifying, destructive creature. Little more than a giant, aggressive bird causing chaos. This version often strips away the cultural and spiritual significance, reducing a complex figure into a simple antagonist for heroes to overcome. While thrilling, this monstification can be problematic. It flattens a multi-layered myth into a one-dimensional trope, ignoring the nuance and respect inherent in the original stories. It is a classic example of how pop culture can borrow an element from a tradition without carrying over its meaning or soul. The Thunderbird's influence also echoes powerfully through music. Countless bands have adopted the name, and songs have been written to capture its wild, untamable spirit. The legendary instrumental Thunderbird by the Nightcaps, later famously covered by ZZ Top, is a perfect example. The driving, raw energy of the guitar riffs feels like a storm rolling in it. Music that tries to sonically replicate the power and freedom associated with the mythic bird. In rock and roll, the Thunderbird becomes a symbol of rebellion, of untamed energy, and of soaring above the ordinary. It represents a break from convention, a raw connection to something primal and powerful, much like the original legends described its connection to the raw forces of nature. However, the most authentic and vital representations of the Thunderbird today are found right where they began, in contemporary indigenous art. For centuries, native artists have carved, painted, and woven the Thunderbird, not as a mere decorative motif, but as a continuation of a living tradition. On totem poles, the Thunderbird often sits at the very top, a position of honor signifying its role as a protector and a powerful spiritual entity. In modern prints, paintings, and jewelry by indigenous creators, the Thunderbird is depicted with a deep understanding of its cultural importance. These artists aren't just repeating old designs, they are reinterpreting and re-energizing the story for a new generation. Their work is a vibrant, ongoing conversation with their heritage. When you see a Thunderbird in a piece of authentic indigenous art, you're not just looking at a beautiful image. You're seeing a story, a belief system, and a worldview passed down through generations. These pieces serve as a powerful reminder that the Thunderbird is not just a myth from the past. It is a living, breathing part of indigenous identity and spirituality today. This art is a crucial bridge between the ancient world and the modern one, carrying the true spirit of the Thunderbird forward. So, we've seen the Thunderbird as a sports logo, a car, a movie creature, and a rock and roll anthem. But this journey from sacred being to pop culture icon raises an important question. What happens when a sacred symbol goes mainstream? The evolution is fascinating. The Thunderbird began as a sacred guardian in numerous indigenous traditions, a powerful entity that brought life-giving rain but could also be a fearsome enforcer of cosmic order. It was a being deeply connected to the balance of the natural and spiritual worlds. As it entered mainstream culture, this complex identity was simplified. The focus shifted to its most easily digestible traits: strength, power, and freedom. The Thunderbird became an emblem, a shorthand for Ra, Untamed Force. This transformation is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it has given the Thunderbird a kind of immortality, embedding it into the global consciousness. People all over the world recognize its power, even if they don't know the specific stories. On the other hand, this simplification often comes at a cost. When the Thunderbird is reduced to just a symbol of power, its spiritual depth and cultural significance can be lost. It risks becoming generic, detached from the very cultures that gave it life and meaning. This brings us to the crucial topic of cultural respect. As we engage with the Thunderbird legend in its modern forms, it's essential to remember and honor its origins. The Thunderbird is not a monster from a generic fantasy book. It is a sacred figure from specific, indigenous cultures. Using its image without acknowledging its source, or twisting its meaning for commercial gain, is a form of cultural appropriation. It takes a piece of a living heritage and treats it like a public domain commodity. So, how can we appreciate this powerful symbol respectfully? First, by learning. Take the time to understand where the stories come from. Seek out and support contemporary indigenous artists, storytellers, and cultural centers. When you buy a piece of art or a piece of jewelry with a Thunderbird on it, try to ensure it's from an authentic indigenous creator. By doing so, you are not just buying an object. You are participating in the continuation of a living culture and honoring the artists who are its modern guardians. Honoring the myth means appreciating its complexity. It means understanding that the Thunderbird is more than just a cool logo or a scary monster. It is a symbol of the sacred relationship between humanity and nature, a protector of the skies, and a vital part of the spiritual identity of many indigenous peoples. By approaching the Thunderbird with curiosity, respect, and a willingness to listen to the voices of the cultures it belongs to, we can ensure that this magnificent creature continues to soar, not just as a symbol of power, but as a symbol of enduring heritage and profound respect. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the modern life of the Thunderbird. It's a story that reminds us that myths are not just old tales. They are living, breathing parts of our world that continue to shape and inspire us. If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the world of mythology. We'd love to have you in our community. See you next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey into the heart of myth and history. We've soared through tales of colossal birds, creatures of storm and sky, known as Thunderbirds. We've listened to ancient stories and pieced together eyewitness accounts. But today, we're leaving the realm of pure legend and stepping into the tangible world of science, into the halls of museums where the bones of forgotten giants rest. This is where myth meets reality in the most astonishing way. So, what happens when we look for real-world candidates for the Thunderbird? We find them, not in the skies of today, but locked in stone, in the fossil record. Let me introduce you to two of the most incredible avian predators to have ever existed. First, Territornis Moriami *. Imagine a bird, similar to a condor, but on a much grander scale. It lived right here in North America during the Pleistocene epoch, soaring over landscapes that were home to mammoths and saber-toothed cats, with a wingspan stretching up to 12 feet, or about 3.7 meters. This wasn't just a large bird, it was an apex predator of the skies. Its fossils, many of which have been pulled from the famous La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles, paint a picture of a powerful hunter, fully capable of taking down prey much larger than you might expect. Think about that for a moment. A bird with the wingspan of a small aircraft. Imagine the shadow it would cast. Now, let's take that image and magnify it. Let's travel down to South America, to the Argentina of 6 million years ago. Here, we meet Argentavis. Magnificens *, the magnificent Argentine bird. And magnificent it was. This is, to our current knowledge, one of the largest flying birds ever to have lived. Heights, wingspan. Estimates range from a staggering 16 feet all the way up to 23 feet, or 7 meters. That's longer than 2 cars parked in. Its feathers would have been the size of samurai swords. It weighed around 150 pounds, or 70 kilograms. This creature was less like a bird and more like a feathered glider, a living, breathing airplane. It likely used the wind currents of the Andes Mountains to stay aloft, soaring for hours, scanning the ground below for carrion or unsuspecting prey. Can you picture it? Standing in a museum, perhaps the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County, or the Museo de la Plata in Argentina. You walk into a hall, and there it is, a skeletal reconstruction of asterisk. Teratones or asterisk argentavis asterisk. Your eyes trace the line of the massive, hollow bones of the wings, trying to comprehend the sheer scale. You see the powerful beak, designed for tearing flesh. You look at the powerful leg bones that supported its weight. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the museum, the world of prehistory feels incredibly close. You're not just looking at bones. You're looking at the ghost of a real-life monster, a true giant of the sky. It's an experience that stops you in your tracks. People gasp. They point. They pull out their phones to try and capture the immense size. But photos rarely do it justice. You can hear parents telling their children, yes, that was a real bird. It really flew. And in that shared moment of awe, something clicks. You realize that the world was once home to creatures far more fantastic than many of our myths. The awe we feel looking at these skeletons is primal. It's the same feeling our distant ancestors must have felt seeing one of these giants circle overhead, or perhaps finding a massive, mysterious feather on the ground. This brings us to a crucial point in our investigation. What if the Thunderbird wasn't a supernatural entity? What if it wasn't a single, mythical species? What if the legend is, in fact, an echo, a deeply ingrained, fragmented memory passed down through countless generations? Think of it like this. Early humans in the Americas would have shared their world with these colossal birds. Encounters, even rare ones, would have been unforgettable, terrifying, and awe-inspiring. A creature that could blot out the sun, whose flapping wings could sound like distant thunder. How would you describe that? How would you explain it to your children, and they to theirs? Over thousands of years, the real animals went extinct, victims of a changing climate and the disappearance of the megafauna they fed on. But the stories remained. Like a great oral tradition, the tales were told and retold around campfires, evolving with each telling. The real bird, the asterisk, Teratones asterisk, became a spirit. Its shadow became a storm cloud. The sound of its wings became the literal clap of thunder. The memory became a myth. The myth became the Thunderbird. This idea is incredibly powerful. It suggests that the Thunderbird legend is a beautiful, complex tapestry woven from 3 distinct threads. The first thread is reality, the existence of enormous, real-life birds, like asterisk, Teratornis, asterisk, and its even larger relatives. The second thread is memory, the ancestral, cultural recollection of sharing the land with these magnificent and terrifying creatures. And the third thread is myth, the human need to explain the unexplainable, to give meaning to the forces of nature, to turn a fearsome creature into a powerful symbol of storm, power, and the sacred. So, perhaps the search for a single living Thunderbird is missing the point. Perhaps the Thunderbird was never just one creature. It is the enduring legacy of nature's grandest designs. It is the fossil record speaking to us through the language of myth. It's the way human consciousness processes and preserves the memory of a world that was wilder, larger, and more wondrous than our own. The bones in the museum and the stories in the wind are 2 sides of the same coin, a testament to the forgotten giants that once ruled the American skies. The Thunderbird, in this sense, is very, very real. It lives on, not in the clouds, but in our collective memory, a permanent echo of a time when monsters were real. Thank you so much for joining me on this leg of our journey. It's a humbling thought, isn't it? To realize that some of our oldest stories might be rooted in such incredible natural history. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the mysteries that connect our past and present. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever seen one of these skeletons in person? What did you feel? Until next time, keep looking up and keep questioning. Welcome back. After journeying through the Thunderbird's many forms, from scientific mystery to a cultural icon, it's time we return to where it all began. The spiritual heart of the legend. Let's quiet our minds for a moment and listen not just with our ears, but with our souls, to the spirit of the storm. Imagine yourself standing on an open plain, or perhaps high on a mountain ridge. The sky darkens. The air grows heavy and still. A low, distant rumble begins, a vibration you feel deep in your chest. This isn't just noise. This is the first beat of the sky's heart. Across countless cultures, this sound has been interpreted as a sign of something vast, ancient, and alive. It's the rhythm of the cosmos, the drumbeat of creation itself. As the rumble grows into a deafening clap, it isn't just a sound wave. It's a declaration of power, a reminder of the immense forces that shape our world. This is the voice of the Thunderbird. Then comes the light, a flash, impossibly bright, that tears the sky in two. It illuminates the world in a stark, fleeting moment of clarity. This is the breath of the sky, the blink of its eye. In many traditions, lightning isn't just electricity. It's a sacred fire, a message from the heavens, a conduit between the spirit world and our own. When the Thunderbird blinks, it is said to send down this light, revealing truths, striking down ignorance, or clearing a path for new growth. This brief, brilliant flash is the very essence of inspiration, a sudden, illuminating idea that can change everything. It's the spirit of the storm breathing life and awareness into the world. Think about the sheer scale of it, the heartbeat of thunder, the breath of lightning. This is nature speaking in its most primal, powerful language. It's a language that predates human words, a language our ancestors understood intimately. They didn't see a storm as a mere meteorological event. They saw a living entity, a spirit in motion. The Thunderbird became the name, the face they gave to this awesome power. It was their way of conceptualizing and honoring a force so far beyond their control. It's a way of saying, we see you. We hear you. We respect you. This perspective shifts our understanding of the Thunderbird from a simple monster or myth to a profound spiritual symbol. The Thunderbird is the embodiment of nature's duality. It represents a power that is both life-giving and, if disrespected, incredibly destructive. This is a fundamental lesson taught by nature itself, and the Thunderbird serves as its greatest messenger. Consider the rain that follows the thunder and lightning. For agricultural societies, this rain was everything. It was the gift of life, the promise of a harvest, the quenching of a parched earth. The Thunderbird, by bringing the storm, was therefore a creator, a nurturer, a symbol of fertility and abundance. Its arrival was celebrated. Prayers were offered, asking the great bird to bless the fields and ensure the community's survival. The sound of thunder wasn't a threat, it was the promise of nourishment. The lightning wasn't just danger, it was the herald of life-giving water. The spirit of the storm was a benevolent force, a partner in the cycle of life. But there is another side to this spirit. The same storm that brings life-giving rain can also bring devastating floods. The same lightning that illuminates the sky can strike a tree, starting a wildfire that consumes everything in its path. The same powerful wings that carry the storm can manifest as hurricane-force winds that tear homes apart. This is the destructive aspect of the Thunderbird, a reminder of nature's untamable and indifferent might. When people became greedy, when they took more than they needed from the land, or when they forgot their place in the great web of life, the Thunderbird's call would turn from a promise to a warning. Its thunder became a roar of anger, its lightning a spear of retribution. This duality is the core of the Thunderbird's spiritual significance. It teaches a crucial lesson about balance and respect. The Thunderbird reminds us that we are not masters of the natural world, but a small part of it. We are subject to its laws, its rhythms, and its power. To live in harmony with the world, we must respect its forces. We must understand that the power to create is intrinsically linked to the power to destroy. This isn't a threat, but a profound truth. A wildfire clears old, dead brush, making way for new saplings to grow. A flood can deposit rich, fertile silt, renewing the soil for future crops. Destruction is often a necessary precursor to creation. Across different cultures, from the indigenous peoples of North America to nomadic tribes in Central Asia, this concept resonates. Storm spirits and thunder gods all carry this dual message. They are protectors and destroyers, creators and cleansers. The Thunderbird is the North American expression of this universal wisdom. It is a powerful spiritual teacher, cloaked in feathers and storm clouds. It challenges us to look at the world with a sense of awe and humility. When we hear thunder now, what if we tried to hear it this way? Not as an inconvenience or something to fear, but as the heartbeat of something immense and ancient. A reminder that we are part of a system far larger and more powerful than ourselves. When we see lightning, what if we saw it not just as a static discharge, but as the breath of the sky? A momentary glimpse into the raw, creative energy that fuels the universe. This meditative approach connects us to a way of seeing the world that is both ancient and deeply relevant today. In our modern lives, we are often insulated from nature. We have weather apps that tell us when a storm is coming. We have sturdy houses that protect us from the wind and rain. It's easy to forget the sheer power that a storm represents. It's easy to lose our sense of awe. The spirit of the Thunderbird invites us to reclaim that awe. It asks us to step outside, figuratively or literally, and recognize the majesty of the natural world. It's a call to respect the intricate balance of the ecosystems we depend on. The legend warns us that if we push that balance too far through pollution, deforestation, or disregard for the climate, the spirit of the storm will respond. The Thunderbird's cry will become one of warning, and its power will be felt in more destructive ways. The legend isn't just a story about a big bird. It's a spiritual guide. It's a poetic framework for understanding our relationship with the planet. The Thunderbird is the personification of nature's sacred power, a power that demands our respect, our gratitude, and our careful stewardship. It's a reminder that true strength isn't about control or domination, but about understanding, harmony, and living in balance with the great forces of life. So, the next time a storm rolls in, take a moment, close your eyes. Feel the vibration of the thunder. See the flash of lightning behind your eyelids. Let yourself feel small, not in a fearful way, but in a reverent one. You are witnessing one of the oldest and most sacred ceremonies on Earth. You are in the presence of the Thunderbird, the eternal, powerful, and awe-inspiring spirit of the storm. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the heart of the legend. This series has been an incredible journey, and I'm so grateful to have shared it with you. If these stories and ideas resonate with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into myth, mystery, and the human spirit. Your support makes all of this possible. Until next time, stay curious and listen closely to the stories the world has to tell. Welcome, friends, to the final chapter of our journey. Come with me, just for a moment. Find a quiet space, close your eyes if you wish, and let your imagination take flight. Picture yourself standing in an open field, or perhaps on a gentle, rolling hill. The sun has just dipped below the horizon, painting the world in hues of soft violet, deep indigo, and the last fiery strokes of orange. The day is ending, but the world is not yet asleep. It's a time of transition, a moment held between the light and the dark. This is the hour of dusk, the time when the sky begins to remember. Above you, the vast canvas of the evening sky is in motion. Clouds, like great fluffy ships, drift lazily on an unseen current. They are not the stark white clouds of midday, but are tinged with the fading light. Their bellies are soft, dusky gray. They gather and part, creating fleeting shapes and stories for those who take the time to look. What do you see in them? A mountain range? A sleeping giant? Or perhaps something else? Something more ancient? Feel the air around you. It's cool now, carrying the scent of damp earth and the promise of night. A gentle wind begins to stir, a soft breath that rustles the leaves in the nearby trees. It sounds like a whisper, a secret being shared between the land and the sky. Listen closely. Can you hear it? It's a sound that is carried through countless evenings just like this one, a timeless lullaby sung by the world itself. This is the atmosphere where legends are born, where the line between the seen and the unseen begins to blur. It's in this quiet, sacred space that our story finds its final resting place. As you stand there, bathed in the twilight, your gaze fixed on the shifting clouds, you might feel a sense of anticipation. It's a feeling that something profound is just beyond your perception, hidden just out of sight. The world feels larger in these moments, more mysterious. The wind picks up just a little, and you pull your jacket a bit tighter. The leaves rustle more insistently now, their dance becoming more energetic. The clouds overhead seem to thicken, their soft grays deepening into a more formidable shade. There's a change in the air, a shift in the energy of the world. And then, just for a heartbeat, you think you see it. Or maybe you feel it. A flicker of movement high above, a shadow that is darker than the clouds themselves. Is it just a trick of the fading light? A pattern in the roiling vapor? Or is it something more? You hold your breath, your eyes scanning the heavens, and then you hear it. A sound, faint at first, that seems to come from the very heart of the sky. It's not the rumble of distant traffic or the drone of an airplane. It's something organic, something powerful. It is the sound of a beat, slow and immense. Thump thump, thump thump, like a colossal heart, or maybe, just maybe, like the beat of wings. Imagine it, soaring just beyond that veil of clouds. A creature of immense scale, its form a silhouette against the last vestiges of daylight. You can't see the details, not clearly, but you can feel its presence, the sheer power required to move those wings, to command the air and ride the currents of the storm it carries with it. You sense the crackle of energy in the air, the static electricity that precedes a lightning strike, a power held in check, but always present. This is the Thunderbird, not as a monster of myth or a fearsome omen, but as a living, breathing part of the world's mystery. In this moment, it doesn't matter if what you're imagining is real in the scientific sense. The question of proof seems small and insignificant compared to the feeling it evokes. What matters is the connection to something ancient and untamed, a force of nature personified. For generations, people have looked to the skies and seen more than just weather patterns. They have seen stories, they have seen spirits, they have seen power. The Thunderbird is the embodiment of that awe, the ultimate expression of the sky's majesty and its raw, untamable power. Hisit, a myth, a story told around a fire to explain the terrifying beauty of a thunderstorm. Perhaps myths are the language of the human soul, our way of making sense of a world that is often chaotic and overwhelming. They give a face to the formless, a name to the powerful forces that shape our lives. The Thunderbird, in Tis Sensei, is the story of the storm itself, the dark, brooding clouds, the sudden flash of lightning, the deafening clap of thunder. It's a way to understand and respect the power of nature, not as a collection of physical laws, but as a living, dynamic entity. Or is it a memory? A collective, ancestral memory of a time when the world was younger and giant creatures truly did rule the skies. Science tells us of the incredible pterosaurs, like the Quetzalcoatlus, with wingspans as wide as a small aircraft. Is it possible that the stories of the Thunderbird are a faint echo, a cultural memory passed down through millennia, a whisper of a time when humans looked up and saw these magnificent beings soaring overhead? The details may have been changed by time and retelling, embellished with the supernatural, but perhaps the core of the story, the memory of a giant bird in the sky, is true. Or could it be a metaphor, a symbol for something deep within ourselves? The Thunderbird represents power, transformation, and vision. It is the spirit that brings the life-giving rains, washing the world clean and allowing for new growth. It is the flash of inspiration, the sudden, brilliant idea that arrives like a bolt from the blue. It represents the untamed parts of our own spirits, the power that lies dormant within us, waiting for the right storm to be unleashed. To see the Thunderbird, then, is to recognize our own potential, our own connection to the great, creative, and sometimes destructive forces of the universe. As you stand there, under that deepening twilight sky, the moment the faint beating sound fades, blending back into the whisper of the wind. The dark shape in the clouds dissolves, becoming just another formless shadow. The world returns to a familiar quiet, but something has changed within you. The world feels a little more magical, a little less known. The sky is no longer just a ceiling of air and vapor. It's a canvas of possibilities, a place where memories and dreams converge. The beauty of the Thunderbird lies not in proving its existence, but in its ability to make us wonder. It invites us to look up and dream. It reminds us that for all our science and all our knowledge, for all the maps we've drawn and the mysteries we've solved, the world still holds secrets. There are still blank spaces on the map of our understanding, and those spaces are not empty. They are filled with wonder, with mystery, and with the potential for discovery. Whether you see it as a myth that explains the natural world, a memory of a prehistoric past, or a metaphor for the human spirit, the Thunderbird serves a vital purpose. It keeps our imagination alive. It encourages us to believe that there is more to this world than what we can see and touch and measure. It tells us that the sky remembers stories we have long forgotten, and that if we listen closely, with an open heart and a curious mind, we might just hear them. And so, we leave it here, beneath the gathering stars. We leave it with the gentle reflection that some stories are not meant to be concluded with a simple answer of true or false. Their power is in the questions they ask and the feelings they inspire. The Thunderbird, in all its forms, is a gift, a reminder that the world is, and always will be, full of mysteries worth dreaming about. It is a testament to the enduring power of story and the timeless magic of looking up at the sky and simply wondering, what if? Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. It has been a privilege to explore these stories with you. If you've enjoyed our time together, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the myths and mysteries that shape our world. Until next time, keep looking up and never stop dreaming.